For Beautification and Public Arts Committee for order. So we will do roll call. Commissioner Travelby. Here. Commissioner Cruz. Excused. Commissioner Edelman Heath. Present. Vice Chair Ruan.
Present and with empty mouth.
Commissioner Curley. Present. Commissioner McGrath.
Present.
And I, Chair McCord, am here. So with that, we'll move on to public participation. Is there any public participation in this?
No, I received none.
And then we'll move on to item B, discussion item, funding 101. And Dave, I believe you have the usual presentation.
Yes, some of you will see a presentation that you have seen before, or generally very similar to it. Others, this will be new, but hopefully it's a good refresh for even the ones who've seen it before. And basically, as the slide says, this is kind of a quick explanation of some of the city budget concepts, how they intersect with BPAC. As we have someone from our budget section here, I will make the caveat, I'm speaking in what's called like program language, right? So finance and budget are very technical and I do my best to use the proper words. But there sometimes is difference between finance and program speak. And I'll just throw that out there. And if Tammy wants to jump in and add anything, more than welcome to.
Okay.
But this is mostly just a way to kind of frame how our budget process works and what the city structure looks like. All right, so the BPAC, as you've already heard, guides and advises on two separate financial funds. And we say beautification, arts and sciences a lot. That kind of merges together in one, and it could be confused as one program because the same staff manages that program, but they are two different funds by ordinance, and the money is kept separate. Beautification receives 20% of the BBB. It is a very robust fund, and that is in part because its scope and scale and what it's trying to do often deals with infrastructure projects, which are very expensive. So when it was first created, the ordinance put in place that division, in part because, again, working on roadways, roadscapes, those things become very expensive. Some funding transfers out immediately to pay for maintenance of previous projects and litter pickup. So there are, for instance, there's a $30,000 transfer out that the council chose to allocate some time ago towards a program where volunteer litter pickup happens. And so those funds are just kind of removed right away. And then, of course, there is PROS manages a number of projects for us to help keep things maintained as they go, and that transfer happens out. But in general, the funding is part of the process that we talk about here. And one of the things I just love about beautification, the ordinance says that it modifies the urban physical environment to increase pleasure to the senses or pleasurably exalt the mind or spirit or strengthen the urban design framework in the city. That is so not government. I love it. Right? I mean, that is fun. And it is government because we get to do it and it is part of our city. And thank goodness, not to be political, but I think it's great that our voters chose to do that and that we get to be a part of the responsibility of doing that well. But it is something just to note that this is not something you see everywhere, and that kind of language in an ordinance, I think, is kind of special. Arts and sciences, it receives 9.5% of the BBB, so less than half of what beautification does, and that does become important as we go. And the ordinance says support for Flagstaff arts and science and cultural activities, events, and organizations to provide direct or indirect citizen participation and enhancement of the overall quality of life and community image. I just
7.5, isn't it?
economic development.
Yeah, I think you said
7.5. Perhaps I got switched.
You're right. I think it is.
No, you think you're right.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dave.
Quality control lacking today.
And I did an entire,
No, you're right. I think it is. I think I got economic development and arts and science switched when I wrote
yeah,
this.
I just wanted.
Slide.
to make sure.
Apologies for that.
7.5%.
7.5.
Even less.
So positions and fixed costs are split between the funds. For example, one position within our structure is 80% beautification, 20% arts and sciences. Those percentages are based on both the fund size and scale, also a little bit about where the work goes, but it's as much about the size and scale of the funds as anything else. But they are, again, separated by ordinance. So one of the things we can talk about is we can use beautification funding to support other beautification projects, and we can use arts and science funding to support arts and science projects. We really can't have that money flow back and forth. There are places, and I think we've talked about this, but there are places where it can look like that's the case, right? Because some beautification activities could also be looked at as arts and science. But we really do have a separation between the funds. So, as I mentioned, program speak's not always the same as finance speak. I just say that a lot because it is interesting when you're sitting down and talking to somebody in budget or finance and they're using the same words you're using, but you don't mean the exact same thing. So I just want to make sure I'm very clear with the language. We have two major types of expenditures at the city of Flagstaff within our budget. There is ongoing or recurring, and the way that money works is it refills every year. So it's a part of your budget process that for instance, BIA grants, we know they're going to be an annual thing. They started out as a pilot, right? So they're kind of a good example. BIA grants started out as one-time funding, but as they became something that was more a part of the program and consistent, we moved them into what's called recurring or ongoing. So every year there is an amount that's allocated there from the ongoing and recurring capacity. So when unused funds from that ongoing, they drop into fund balance. Now, we are what's called a special revenue fund, and that means that we're contained within ourselves. So if, for instance, if fire department, their general fund, and if they don't use some of their money, that money falls back into the general fund and can be allocated to any part of the organization. However, with us, because beautification is a separate fund, because arts and science is a special revenue fund, any unused recurring or ongoing funding drops into our fund balance. So that doesn't mean we can spend it that year, but it means that it will be part of our ongoing funding in years to the future, and it continues to gain interest, which comes back directly to this fund. One time is approved to be available once. And so actually any art project or beautification capital project like a roundabout, that's going to be one-time funding. And at that point, that can be carried over into future years if it's not completed. So we can carry that money forward. And if that project isn't completed or if it's under budget, which we love, then that money also falls back into fund balance once it's released. But ongoing funding kind of rolls forward. One time we have to carry forward separately until it gets to the end of the project or the project no longer happens, and then it can drop back into that fund balance. I'm talking pretty fast. Does that all make sense to everybody? All right. So some examples of ongoing and recurring include staff training, travel for staff, the kinds of things that we do to help make sure that the commission and the work has the best possible training and staff going. Sales tax collection, meeting advertisements. But again, we've also included now beautification and action grants, heritage preservation grants, these things that we go every year we do this. And at some points they were one time, but now because they've become such a consistent part of the program, they've switched over to recurring. Holiday decorations, the Creative Flagstaff contract, and the downtown flowers are also really good ideas. And once again, the first time we did the flowers, it was one time. Now it's ongoing because we know that that is a very, it's a project that we're committed to and there's contracts for it. So changes to ongoing funding must be requested through a budget process and they're justified. Ongoing funds are actually the most challenging funds to get because really the city is committing to having those funds available consistently for at least probably 5 years or so. What happens is when, well, let's go to the next slide. We'll talk about one time. So it is sometimes challenging. You'll get capacity. The way our budget process works is we find out how from our 5-year plan what our capacity is, and then we actually work to fill that capacity with the kinds of projects that the commission is interested in. And based on how the 5-year plan goes, there's usually more one-time funding than ongoing funding available. We do use one-time funding to help set up offices for new staff, for special travel requests, for things that come up that were not anticipated. Most one-time funding allocations for these two programs are really dedicated to projects, and we refer to these as capital projects. Capital project allocations are done through a 5-year capital plan. Where many of the 5-year capital plans in the organization are really rigid. If you look at traffic, for instance, their 5-year plan doesn't change that much. They move forward at a very systematic process. The BPAC 5-year plan, when we started here, was very aspirational. It was kind of like, we got all this money and we're gonna do lots and lots of cool stuff. And over the years, we've really worked to take that from aspirational and extremely flexible, where depending on what was moving forward, we just kind of did the projects that were in the plan that the commission liked, to a place that really is more realistic. And part of that is guidance from finance. Because we actually, there's this, we're getting a little into the details here, but there's actually something called the expenditure limit. The city is not allowed to spend more than a certain amount of money each year. And when you're doing projects like the Lone Tree Overpass and things like that, where it costs millions and millions and millions of dollars, we actually bump up against that expenditure limit sometimes. And so when beautification, because we also have significant funding, beautification, we had a number of different projects that were kind of listed for expenditure, whether or not we got there. It turned out we were making that expenditure limit harder. And so we really worked with the commission, we worked with staff, with finance to scale back from aspirational to realistic. And you're gonna hear more about that because instead of being focused on how much money there is, although that matters, it's more focused on time capacity. It's what we think we can actually deliver in that year is what guides the program. So, again, the 5-year plan, one time is easier to change than recurring funding. We can pull funding from one project to another to support. So if one project comes in under budget, another comes in over budget, we can move that back and forth. Major changes like that have to go to what's called change order committee. But in general, if a smaller minor change, we can move back and forth as long as we're staying within our fund balance. We can roll projects into future years. And as already mentioned, because these are special revenue funds, if we don't use all the money, it doesn't go back into the general fund or suddenly become used for a street. It comes back in and then is reallocated through our process in a future year. Questions?
Dave, every that presentation becomes more succinct and better. You're clearly working on it. That is awesome.
Every day, I literally get up at 5 every day and I rehearse this presentation. I'm glad it's finally getting there.
No, it's fantastic. It was a great and
Thank you.
fantastic explanation.
Thank you. As our newest commissioner, I'm hoping not putting you on the spot. Is there anything in there that you want me to just kind of dig into a little deeper?
Makes total sense.
Okay. Everybody's good? Moving on.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, budget, or did I get anything wrong?
Nope.
Yeah.
Just I-
Not
No, I did.
The back of my hand.
We are in official meeting format. I won't make a motion to approve Dave.
That would be serious, because what if you guys rejected me? That'd be so sad.
It's discussion only. Yes, it's discussion only, so we can't do that. So we'll move on to item 2, retreat framing. And Gianna, I know that this is near and dear to your heart.
Yes, yes, and so, for those of you who are repeat commissioners, this is gonna seem very familiar. Maybe refined a little bit, I think each year, kind of like theirs, we try to make it a little bit more succinct because this commission has in the past been very aspirational and has, taken on, everything that they wanted included, to evaluate, each and every project. And so there's been a lot of thought, but, we've been trying to make it manageable for you, as well in the future. So just one of the biggest things is that because especially beautification is well funded, we are generally budgeting to time capacity rather than available funds. Now, there's some exceptions to that. Like the year that Lone Tree goes, that is a $2.9 million take out of our budget. So that year, we're gonna probably have to, maneuver other projects a little bit, but in general, we have to look at time down. We have great staff. We have now seasoned staff. Corey's been on here, over a year, and Kristen, and you can see how many projects we are completing every year. But we also, there's a limit, and we cannot burn out my wonderful staff. I will not let you. Because I want to keep them. And so, and as you know, we added collections and maintenance as a major component, about the year 1.25 years ago. It's been going swimmingly. I'll get a little bit more into that later, but that, the complete dedicated projects, that's our main focus. And of what we are working on, what we want to take up next is the main focus of this retreat. And then we prioritize the remaining projects kind of a little bit more, off into the distance, but we, focus on here and now and the next fiscal year the strongest in this retreat. Because that's what has to be approved by city council in June. So this is like our kickoff to the budget process. All right, so full staff capacity, we're gonna go ahead and say we can do 20 active projects per year, okay? That's what we feel comfortable with, but we are gonna hold 2 slots for emergent projects. As you know, we get emergent or city council or upper management requests. It happens so consistently, where we end up just deferring projects anyway. Projects that you voted to prioritize because they come in and take up 2 slots. We're just gonna plan for that from here on out. That's new. This is the first time we've actually included 2 emergent. We tried to, and I think we had one year. Matt's going like, I remember 1 year, but no, there are 2. You will see that. And so, these are things that, another, department is all of a sudden realizing that, their project could be enhanced by beautification and it's already going. And so they come to us and we really want to, be able to accommodate that because the more we're part of big capital projects and improving like the overall look of the city with beautification funds, the better. It really works well. Also, then some of our projects beget other projects. That's what's happened with the multicultural, county park exhibition. So here we're gonna go into the Joy Montoya. We're gonna take things from there. We're gonna go there. That's what we want to have happen. And, we want people to come with us and say, I really love that project. How can we do that? So those are the sorts of things that come up. So let's just, your aspirations, outcomes, key points, those are things we're gonna kind of look at. So, our aspiration is to have that balanced time capacity work plan that includes your priorities. And then we want to expand on what's, in place to achieve those guidelines. Our outcomes, we gotta have that FY 27 and FY 28 work plans kind of FY 27 more inked in and lately inked in FY 28. And have that list of recommended projects, that go, a little bit beyond. So if things get bumped, we know what to grab. And so I think I have this a little bit wrong. I'm going to try to create a 5-year plan that's reviewed by BPAC in January, not December. And then, it's kind of March or April that we do the final approval. We'll actually have 2 5-year plans. We'll have one for capital projects in January. And then in February, we'll have the ongoing recurring items, which are harder to get approval from budget committee. We'll go over those and then either March or April, we'll kind of have it all put together. And then you approve and then it goes to council, obviously in June. Great. So, your guys are the advisory commission, who are such the dominant voice that shapes our work. We do have other voices. We do have city leadership, and we always try to communicate that to you whenever that comes in. Like our time capacity has limits for new ideas in the next few years. We are actually starting to see opening, like FY 29, FY 2030. I'm seeing lots of opening for new ideas. So as you know, summertime is the time that we consider new project ideas. So if this commission has new project ideas for these later outcome years, I am now seeing space for us to really start investigating that, in FY 29 and FY 2030 for sure. And so if you guys want to think of those things, we could have maybe just a summer session like in July, just to vote into new commission ideas and then just start batting them around. But the summer months really work well for that. But I wanted to put that out there. But before I was saying we have very few spots, I'm now seeing some opening. investing smoking. And so we have lots of different kind of things that we wanted us to consider when we're looking at prioritizing projects and when we're looking at what projects we should take on. And, there was a lot of thought that went into this, and all of you remember Vice Chair Levarsky. She was kind of a spearhead, she was a big thinker, you know, the kind of philosophy thinker, you know, of our program for so many years, and, she put together a little committee, and most of these came, you know, from the commission itself. So, you know, placemaking is, you know, one of the most important things that we do in this program. You know, how do we enhance our sense of place? What makes this vital to Flagstaff? What makes this project vital to Flagstaff? And, you know, we have to, you know, public accessibility is a big thing that we, you know, put in. You know, we want to also look at it, you know, are we just plopping something on or are we actually integrating it? You know, those are sorts of considerations when looking at projects that we want to take into account. You know, we have also focused in on excellence, diversity, and inclusiveness. And I think that for those of you who caught the presentation that we just had to council 2 weeks ago, where we talked about how our public process informed the Cleo Murdoch sculpture and the timetable. You know, we have come a long way to include so many more voices that hadn't been heard before. Also in the Multicultural County Park, you know, exhibition, you know, we have made, you know, really great progress in this. I feel very proud of all the work that we've done in this area. But we also want to, you know, diversity is diverse in many ways. So you know, how we found ways to include local artists. And I think, you know, that's one of the reasons the traffic signal cabinets and the, you know, the BIA grants have become so prominent for us. We always want to make sure that there's opportunities, you know, for local artists. We also are working with, you know, Creative Flagstaff to do workshops so that they can go up to the next level, so that they can be one of those 52 applicants for the Schweitzer Canyon Roundabout and get strong consideration. But we haven't seen a lot of local artists get there yet. We have been encouraging Kristen, in our newsletter that goes out, we've been trying to include a lot of other opportunities like in the Valley and in the state and in New Mexico. You know, apply for these, you know, because you can't look at it as an artist that you basically are up and in your own community and have to go out. So we're trying to really encourage that, because that's kind of, you know, we obviously we're gonna have people come in from other places, but we really want to have that place for local artists in our, you know, programs. Like I said, you know, diversity, you know, approaches a lot of different things. And as you saw, diversity just in the types of art. You know, we're very core 10 still. We tend to have more of the historical back outlook in a lot of our projects. But, you know, now with Schweitzer Canyon, we're going to get something different. So we also have to have diversity in the type of art in our collection. So I think that's another strong thing to consider. Yes, so that's my lead into the, you know, it covers both. Do we have a diversity of aesthetic styles? You know, we don't want to get too much in a rut, although we also want to do what works here. And so, and again, projects can have, you know, there's multiple modalities and there's multiple levels. And maybe the multiple modalities since experience is something that, you know, we should look forward to, you know, project. You know, if we see a project like that come forward, give it a little bit more priority because we haven't had a lot of that. We've had little things, we, you know, incorporated, you know, some modalities of, you know, senses of feel in like the library project, but we haven't, I think, fully explored that as much. So that's something to, you know, to consider.
If it's okay, just to.
Yes, please. Jump in any time on any slide.
I'm gonna limit it because nobody needs to hear from me on all of this, but, no, I really, I think that this particular slide reflects some of the growth and some of the really good things we've achieved as a commission. Definitely, we've actively, looked for, new forms of art. It's nice to see performance becoming more prominent. I think also that we have, in particular right now, we have a really good representation of different perspectives. Maybe lacking a little bit in some of our diversity here as a commission, but, we're at least thinking about it. And also, I think we've gotten really good at not trying to be arbiters of taste. Because everybody has a different level of taste or a different type of taste, I think is maybe a better way to say it. So just going forward, I really like some of the things that we as a commission have kind of grown and changed over the past 5 or 6 years. So that's all, just I really like it. Thank you.
I'd like to build on that last part about the urban greatness to taste. I think what we try to focus in on is of this style of art, is this a high quality piece of that style of art? Yes, it still has to be a high quality piece. Absolutely, absolutely. So,
Can I ask a question?
yes.
Are these slides available to us? So I don't have to frantically write all this.
Yeah, actually, it was sent out to you.
It was, okay.
Yeah, in a PDF form, so
PDF, okay, got
you do have it,
Okay.
yes, so it's I know, I wish I could have gotten it to you before Wednesday, but I, I was still tweaking, so.
Well, and as I said during our lunch, we were kind of amazed at how much the staff gets done in the amount of time we've had. So bravo to all of you for what you do. Thank you.
Can I throw out something to that? So tourism, which is another, section within this division. They get 30% of the BBB and they have 13 employees. So think about 27.5% with beautification, arts and science having 3 employees. I think it's pretty justifiable that in the future, we should be growing, with bodies.
Yes.
If you wanna put it to scale. So something to think about when you go into the budget cycles. Jana, I know Jana's always thinking about those things, but there's a big difference on how you deliver those services. Tourism though, we all want to love the visitor. They're the reason why this fund, this BBB continues to provide. But I just wanted to throw that out, think about, perspective.
So never apologize for being busy.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Can I have one piece too? I think it's really cool to see, so not that long ago, this literally was like a 1.5 FTE. And so it has really been amazing to see the evolution grow to here, which is still, much smaller scale and staffing. But one of the things that also makes me very excited is a lot of the projects in the past, and I won't take anything away from them, but there were projects that generated a lot of outcry, and it wasn't always positive, right? Art is subjective, and as mentioned, can be challenging, but I think partly because of the guiding questions you're using, and partly because of the really solid public process that the commission and the staff works with. I mean, knock on wood, we actually have had, most of the projects have really generated only positive or relatively positive feedback. And I really think that's in part because of the fact that there is so much thought and energy goes into making it reflect the community values and spread out. And when I started here, we were dealing with a couple of projects that had not generated positive feedback. And so it is something I'm highly aware of, that partly through this and through great leadership and quality art being selected, you're managing to do stuff that generates really positive feedback. Thanks for letting me just share that. Thank you.
The project that will generate the controversy that will get you on the table will be the one that you don't expect. There's not a public art program in the world that has not experienced that. But we do put a lot of thought into our selection process to try to get those community advocates on board right away. And that's why we do that. Even though I'm just knocking on wood. Yeah, I've still been bitten. Yes. It happens to every program at least once. It's really weird sometimes, so once I'll do it, you just don't, see it coming. So one of the things that we also have to look at is partnerships and cooperative relationships. Like, we can add staff, but if procurement and capital projects doesn't add staff, sometimes then we get hemmed in by what we can do. We have to, if a project really requires, a significant partnership with another, city agency, do they really have it in their work plan? Are they gonna put energy into it? Or is this just something that they look to us because we have funding and they feel also they want us to do all the work? And we have to also consider that. Because those projects can sometimes drag staff down, a long time and take away from other projects. So we have to evaluate that, what's the buy-in? So we do though like to work, these joint projects. I think that they, it's really great to, work with other commissions. I mean, obviously, the train being, one of our objects and wasn't transferred over to HPC at some point was it made logical sense at the time and, we're working with HPC, as you can see on that project to get the best outcome. There's other commissions. I know that there was a time when, CPAC went and started attending other commission meetings. Everybody took a commission to see if there was any way that we could find projects to do together. Yeah, we might consider, this summer taking that up. It's like, well, maybe for 29, 30, let's go look for some joint projects. Because it will strengthen the project if we have the buy-in from, other partners. So we do though. If you look at whatever staff we have, if you add staff, that'll be great. But whatever staff we have, that is something that we have to really look at. That's our time capacity budgeting. That we most have to look at. Does it require another city program? Are they buy-in? Is this something that will lend itself to future programming or promotion? That helps staff. If we can just build off another project, then, it's less staff time. That's right. So it's a staff's perspective discussion, and I'm going to actually ask Heidi to chime in here also on this slide. But, since I started here 5.5 years ago, I just wanted to try to create the best possible process. Within this, obviously the constraints that hit any kind of city project, the procurement process, all the approvals that it has to go through, and all that. But each project is different. So we have some kind of different kinds of processes, whether it's an RSOQ, whether it's proposals, whether it's this, and I try to say, what's this project? What will suit this project the best and get us the best outcome? And so we really have, I think, explored that with a lot of success. But I do try to engage a multitude of interested parties, and this is interested community parties. Chris has also just been absolutely wonderful in engaging, especially the SCA and the Sunnyside Community Association as well. So we've had a lot of participation there. But it's also something that, and I worked this with Discover Flagstaff a lot. I want Flagstaff to be known not just for its great nature, its great beer, and its great hiking, but also as a distinct arts and culture community. We're getting noticed. The reason we got 52 applicants is we're starting to get noticed by artists around the country. This is a good thing. There's art, cultural tourism that's out there as well. And I just think that we are making progress. We're not there yet. But I mean, we're there in content. We're not there in being known that way. And so I think that, we're, the bigger and better we grow. That's just a huge goal of mine for this program. But our nuts and bolts, how we, get there. One of the things, like I said, we've really, done those BIA grants until we've grown them. Maybe the BIA grants are getting a little too big. We'll just keep saying a little bit later, but, this has been vibrant. This really helps us. And, we have created healthy, flexible budgets, and we've been able to get a lot done with what we had. And we are now using a greater use of those on-call jobs for our capital projects, getting those landscape architects on board, right away to assist us with integrating the art into the project so that they're more seamless and don't look like flat lawn. And then that also really helps our staff. We don't have to do the full-blown call. And have a selection panel needs take months to do. So this really helps us. Even these temporary projects, including the performing, we're growing their budding. They're just starting to bud. Really excited about the direction that's going. And then we've and again, Kristen's really been helping us with this, expanding the outreach on the existing work plans that I really want us to do more with each project versus the number of projects. I think that's really important. And then, what's not on here is everything that Corey's brought. She's making the projects that we have look really good again. The candy dancer, by the way, is going to be the bronze. It's going to be happening tomorrow. And so that's going to be restored to its original patina.
Nice.
It's really, this has been missing from our program, and it is really important. And so, both my staff have done so much to, not my staff, it's the program staff. It's just done, so much to enhance our collection. But, that's my perspective from being the program manager. What's the perspective on the program from?
You're hilarious. If you don't know who I am, I'm Heidi Ganson. I'm the Economic Vitality Director. I just celebrated 13 years at the city.
Yes.
And I will tell you, in the division that I get the pleasure of directing, we have the airports, we have tourism and visitor services, we have the libraries, which are city and county. The county can thank us for that. And we have economic development, parking, and then beautification, arts and sciences. So it is a very huge division, over 100 employees, 4 section directors that help keep everything moving, and they tell me where I need to be when I need to be there. And I feel really confident, seriously, and everyone will say this, but I feel like it is the very best division we have at the city, because we are revenue producers and we are sense of place producers, and we do all of these things that I don't think that everybody gives us enough credit for. We worry about visitation here. We worry about a domestic traveler. We worry about international travel right now being down. We worry about all those things because it costs the city money. It costs the businesses money. And so those are some of the things that I work on a day-to-day basis. When I think about beautification, arts and science, it is a program that definitely needs more staffing. I have been talking with Dave about that. Dave has been sharing that with me, Janet's desire to grow the program. I think it's super obvious that 27.5% of the BBB is going into this. It's justified. What Janet doesn't tell all of you probably all the time is how many times I'm sending Janet a one-off. And it's not because Heidi has nothing better to do but to drive her insane. It's because everybody else has nothing better to do than to drive me insane and to say, hey, what about this? And then what about that? And a lot of those people are our council members and the citizens that they are working for. So what you do here on pre-planning is super important for me to know about so that I can say, do they have capacity? Can they take on more? Thank you very much for that idea, but it might be a hard no right now, but we'll look at that later. One of the projects that Jana has been seriously humoring me on for the last 2 years is Route 66. So the reason why we're a division is because some way, somehow, we all touch a resident and a visitor. And that's why even the library is part of us, because no one knows how many visitors a library really manages or deals with on a day-to-day basis, but it's a lot. So when Route 66 happened, it was from a previous mayor, Coral Evans, that had asked us to do something to make the route more interesting. So we started doing all of these things, and then, of course, we brought in beautification. Janet has never let that not happen. When I asked her, can you do some signage? Can you do this? Can you start to get some of the utility wraps? And she's like, yes. And honestly, out of the entire Route 66 committee that I've been dealing with for 2 years, Janet is the one with her team that is delivering the projects the fastest for me. There's other things that we're working on through Discover Flagstaff, and it is taking kind of like a slower turn. I'm actually driving the insane right now because we're having to gear up. But the point I'm saying is, even when you guys are discussing all these things, there's a lot of voices that Kristen, Corey, and Jenna are dealing with. And they're managing it quite well. I have never seen in 13 years that I've been here, this team has produced more in the last 3 years than I've ever seen in the history of the city. And it's because the three of you care so much, and this volunteer group cares so much. So I just want to say, from my perspective, you are doing amazing work. I never, ever hear anything but good things. But I'd like for you to get more assistance and help throughout the years, because I think you deserve it, and I think the numbers are worthy. So I will be here to be that person into the budget team to speak to that and to help you get there. I think where you're going and what you're doing has already been kind of like a good plan, so I really have nothing else to add on that. I think you know what to do here. But I will say that you are one of the teams that are highly talked about and always talked about in a good way, that you're really making this city and this community look better and to feel better. And you're really helping when it comes to arts and sciences, all of those groups that really are reliant on those funds. They're really reliant on those funds, and they're very, very happy to be working through Creative Flagstaff and everybody as well to get those grants in this project. So I just want to say thank you for volunteering to be part of this commission. I know it takes a lot of time and effort. And I also want to thank the staff. I try to thank you throughout the year, but if I'm not thanking you enough, I just want you to know that I'm more than pleased with what you're doing, and you are a bright spot to the division. So thank you. And Tammy, thank you for really taking the time to be here. Our accountants just don't have to do this. They crunch numbers. But she's trying to understand when she's crunching numbers, what she's crunching. So I really appreciate you being here as well. And Dave, you've been a great leader to this team. Dave has a lot of other programs to lead in community investment, but he's never wavered from taking time for this team. So I appreciate it. Thanks, Jennifer, a few minutes.
Thank you, Heidi. And if you don't currently receive Heidi's monthly report in your email, I strongly encourage you to subscribe to it.
Yeah, just ask Jana, or just send Jana or
Annalisa.
Your email. She'll give it to me. I'll get you on the list. It tells you everything we've done in a month. I think it'll blow your mind. It's like, sometimes it's 25 pages long. The last thing I will say, thank you for bringing that up. We have our annual meeting coming up on November 5th at High Country Conference Center. It's 11:30 to 1:30. It is free. You just have to, I'll have Annie put up Carrie's email, or you can tell Annalisa and she can tell Carrie that you want to come. When you come to that, if you come to that, it's not, I've kind of hijacked tourism's meeting. So you'll see us start with me speaking and me telling you a little bit about what the division has done, but I stopped short of talking about tourism and visitor service because it's actually always been their meeting. And then we go into all the things of what we're doing to drive efforts to bring visitation here, which is driving efforts to keep that BBB solid and help solid your programming. So it's never been a completely just economic vitality division meeting. It's really been hijacking tourism and visitor services meeting, which is an expectation from our stakeholders who are the bars, restaurants, hotels, campgrounds, and that are putting into the BBB fund. There's an expectation that we show them if that 2% is going to be happening, what did we do with that 2%? I want you to know when you come, it's largely a tourism thing, but we talk a little bit about the division and give some heads up. So I just want to explain that. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we're at the end of framing. Is there anything else that you guys, any commissioner would like to say? Yes, Commissioner Travelby.
I just have a question, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but, you know, you guys did that huge study of the art, science, and culture sector, like, what, about a year ago? And I was just curious, like, if there's anything specific that came out of that study that informed, like, these questions, anything specific that we really rose to the top part that the community was saying wanted?
There are things that I'm gonna let Dave answer more fully, but, you know, the most immediate thing is it actually informed that you like your contract with Creative Flagstaff. And it really informed, the types of offerings that we made part of that contract. Was the most immediate impact. But it is also something that, but no, I didn't tweak, you know, these things from the commission, you know, as far as things for framing. But that is something that, you know, we can do in the future. It's something that I keep in mind. I read it, and whenever I'm, you know, working on projects, and I'm looking for things that can fulfill what came out in the arts and culture. But it is, you know, kind of more in that arts and sciences part of the program versus our capital projects. It's not really as much part of that, but it is still, the desire to make it an arts and culture, like that, an arts and cultural destination. I think that's the part that influences the team just overall, and also one of my consistent goals, so it's really easy. But
Go ahead to add to that, so Jay is absolutely right, that a lot of, we took a lot of what was said in there and helped create that scope of services, which is guiding the contract. But one of the other things that study did, I think, really well is, it helped validate which of the other projects, like for instance, beautification action grants were shown to be exceptionally popular. We've added money to that, we've added staff capacity to that has grown. The idea of like a kiosk and the conversation around how do we use and enhance the digital footprint so that arts and culture are tied together has helped guide some of the conversations that we're having with Discover Flagstaff about that. We can certainly bring that scope, that study back to the commission and see if there's other ways that we can, well, we can demonstrate what we've already done with it, and also see if there's other things that you want to take in. But what that study really did is it gave us, I think, a better understanding of what the community was really enjoying about the program. And we have used that to kind of enhance those pieces, beautification action grants, but also, you know, even some of the types of projects, the traffic signal cabinets came up as a real positive, and we've seen more and more information resource go to those. But Janet's absolutely right that the scope came out of it for Creative Flagstaff, and I do think it has impacted some of what we know is validated by the community, and a little bit more of where we're headed with that. But I think it'd be worth revisiting with this group and saying, here's where that study was. We have new members, and it was very helpful to hear from the community on these pieces.
And I think that, you know, obviously venues, you know, was huge in that, and that's like a bigger picture. Obviously, we require the entire city, you know, to be involved, but there
are conversations about
there have been conversations that have come up, and, you know, that has been given to, you know, the city manager and the deputy city manager to help guide some of those conversations about possible venues that have come up with possible, so it's there and it's being circulated and, we know venues is a huge thing and it's also a hard thing to achieve. So, but it's not being ignored. It's not sitting on on the shelf in that way. It's been an active part of those conversations that have been happening in kind of upper management land, as I call it. But it's nothing that we can quite articulate coming forward yet.
And are you talking about, are we talking about the Orpheum?
Yeah,
So there's the Orpheum, there's also, there's a couple different conversations that have had some legs regarding how to move facilities.
indigenous cultural centers.
Indigenous
is part
cultural
of that.
centers, the Orpheum, but
That definitely is still happening at the city manager level, and those conversations are happening with several people, especially spearheaded through, council, or vice mayors, right, this week. The things that I worry about when we talk about things like that, who doesn't want to have an arts district and all of that for you, we do. What I don't want to be is saddled with a 107-year-old building like the Orpheum in our division where we have limited funding. For instance, I wouldn't want your BBB funding to get so sucked dry handling a 107-year-old building with maintenance and issues that you can't do programming. So that's where I come in and I have to balance that conversation with a vice mayor and with a very excited city manager that loves new ideas and a group, a Chris Scully owner and all those. That's where Dave and I have been in those meetings to say, we love the excitement, we love the idea. We're a little worried about the maintenance. We have other buildings that have deferred maintenance, this one to be one of them, and some other things. So we don't want your funding and your opportunity to add staff and all that to get so sucked dry by taking on those things. So where that lands us is saying we have to have more people at the table for this conversation. We would want you to be at the table for this conversation. We want us to really envision, what does it look like to have a true arts district or something downtown? We know the Weatherford is for sale. We know the Orpheum is for sale. We know maybe that's maybe the whole corner becomes the arts district. Who knows? But we can't do that in a vacuum. So that's where I'm sitting at the table, making a lot of other people really annoyed because I'm basically going, slow your roll here. We have to think about a lot of things. And it's easy, Dave knows that I talk about this a lot because there are so many facilities within this division that we have to take care of. And it's a money suck, quite honestly.
If the city purchases anything, it has to be ADA compliant, just, so
So many
that would be a huge lift. There might be other financial ways or nonprofit owning it versus the city. We're trying to facilitate all that, but that cultural study and the importance of it to the cultural community has been part of that conversation.
Yeah, and we're gonna continue to look at all of it. That's where our job is to balance that, so we can get you a good outcome, that it's not someone that's saying, well, this is your outcome. No, I'm a hard no on that. I will not let your funding for projects and people and artists and all that get sucked dry
Yeah.
by owning something that maybe isn't the solution, but maybe there's another way to have that partnership.
Well, I do have a follow-up question real quick.
we want to make clear, it's not just the Orpheum that is a part of these
No, but
conversations.
it's a hot topic that you probably heard about and is gonna be even a hotter topic.
Well, and I guess, purchasing the Orpheum, that's one more venue, but has any part of this conversation been like, a partnership with Beaver Street Theater or a partnership with the Knacker Gallery? There are spaces downtown that could be venues that the city wouldn't necessarily have to purchase.
That hasn't been brought up, but I would love for you to know that when these topics come back up to council, I would love for you to come to public participation if you feel comfortable, or even put it in a card, or if you do it online, and to suggest those things too. Because what Dave and Janet and I want is there to be a lot of communication on this, and we want everybody to exhaust their ideas. It's one thing and I'm just gonna say this, for certain people in downtown to say, hey, I think I'm gonna go and talk to I know I'm recorded, so I have no problem with this, but I'm just saying, someone to say, I want to go and talk to the city manager about this, I have this great idea. The difference is though, we're all supposed to say, that's a possibly good idea, but have we got all the people around the table and have we looked at everything? And that's really where what we're trying to do for this, this sector, just so you know.
So how do I know when that meeting is?
We could totally let you know, when we see
let
it
the
on the
commission
virtual
know.
calendar, we'll let you know, and we can give you a little bit more information on it. Also, whenever you go to, an agenda, for a certain item, when you get on it, you can click on it, or if you guys, you can click on it, you can see the entire presentation, you can see the whole staff summary. You'll know what's already being queued up for the council, so if you feel like, so you don't feel like you're a fish out of water going in front of them, you'll have a little bit more understanding of what that topic is that day.
I'll say too, that there have been some nonprofits that have approached us outside of the Orpheum conversation to say, like, how can we do something too? And, I know that we've talked about, there's been some conversation about even a bond, in one of the next cycles that could help with this. We don't know exactly how that will potentially look, but those things are going. I think there will be a conversation in November or December where council at least hears some of this stuff. And so we can try to make sure the commission's aware of that. My understanding is December.
Because they've already had a first conversation on the Orpheum, and in that conversation on the Orpheum, it was all about arts and an arts district kind of conversation. So they sent the team off, Dave was part of that, to go off and do some other due diligence, they've done that, and then there's gonna be that ongoing dialogue, but we'll make sure that you know, so that if you wanna be part of the conversation, or you wanna throw out something that you can. That's very important to me, just so you know,
And as
that we
like,
get all those perspectives, so that people feel at the end of the day, wow, it was the result the majority was really happy about.
I think just as like one single resident in Flagstaff, and this is a big reason why I'm on BPAC, is it's very difficult to understand how those processes work and who to talk to and where to be at the right time. And I'm learning through BPAC, but I've been on this mission for a year and I still feel a lot of times like,
Do you read the city council meeting agendas every week?
no, I do not.
That will give you so much perspective and the working calendar. I mean, it's all there. All the documents are there. All the information's on the working calendar. You can take those pieces and those documents and you can chase them down for people that are listed on that, and you can ask the questions that you need to ask. I mean, I will say that obviously this is a professional interest for me, so I do it all the time.
Yeah.
But it is all there, and it's really well laid out.
But like
and
hearing you
it's-
say that you've talked to other nonprofits, like I just don't know who, I know people are having conversations with other people and I don't know like who the right people to talk to.
Yeah, and that's challenging, right? Because I'll admit, a lot of times those conversations are because somebody called. They either called me, or they called somebody else who directed them to me, or they talked to Heidi, or they talked to the city manager. And so it's not something where it's easy to convey to everybody, like, all those pieces, right? And sometimes it's just a cup of coffee and it's like, yeah, that would be a really cool idea. However, you know, and here's what the process looks like. But
Well, Vice Mayor, she would have been here today, but she's in
She would.
commission. She's supposed to be, and I know you guys do this, any council member that is a liaison to a commission should be getting a little bit of time with you to fill you in on what's the latest and greatest at the council meeting. If you aren't doing that now, please add it. We do that at the Tourism Commission with Councilmember Allen, we do it at the Airport Commission with Councilmember Matthews. And they can bring something that has nothing to do with the airport or tourism, but they're just saying the latest and greatest that's been happening on the council is this, this, and this. And then that way you can kind of ask more questions. You could say, wow, I think I want to go to that upcoming one or whatever. So Jenna, we could add that to this meeting if you guys would like it. And we're not asking them to take over your meeting. They should give you like a 5-minute rundown. So that could happen, and we just prepare Vice Mayor to know that she's going to be doing that. That's another way to do it.
Yeah, she has her section, and she doesn't always take it up, but we could actually kind of mandate it.
Yeah, she just
Love me.
encouraged. She
Correct.
probably had to do it in the past, but I will tell you, like Lori Matthews, when she got on the airport commission, she asked to have that time to say, let me carve out the top 5 things that have been going on at council, you know, what we've been working on. And it was funny how many people in the commission were like, well, golly, that's important to this and that's important to that. And so it's really been helpful if that's something that you'd like, and we can just kind of share that with Vice Mayor, and have her prepared.
And just relative to all of this stuff, the Orpheum and the Weatherford and Heritage Square.
Mhm.
You know, all of those things feel like you could go down in an adaptive reuse rabbit hole.
For sure.
Which
Museum.
I would strongly encourage an adaptive reuse rabbit hole at some point, but, also that's, to me, that feels like a master plan. I just want to put that out there.
I'm with you all day long, which is why I'm saying, let's slow our roll on this Orpheum thing, because I think that we need to look at this as a bigger deal. And if it was done right, it could really be awesome.
I mean, just knowing the Orpheum and its challenges, like, there's a pretty significant amount of work.
There's also obviously the downtown vision was done by the DDA. And that, you know, there was kind of at least a master plan that was actually completed recently about some things in the downtown, and that needs to be probably brought back into the conversation more prominently.
It didn't get specific about how the arts
Yeah,
district
Yeah.
related in there, so I think there's room, like, it's sort of like, for some of you know that most of our plans roll up to a regional plan of the city, and in some ways, it would be the similar deal where the downtown vision was high enough level that it would make sense to do like an arts master plan that aligned with it. We wouldn't want to get too far out. But yeah, I think there is room for it to be a more comprehensive conversation with some of these other facilities, than just a one-off. And yeah, we do have to be very careful because people can get really excited and then they try to figure out how it's gonna get paid for. And a bond can fund purchase, but those ongoing expenses are gonna come from somewhere. And we wanna be very careful with how that unfolds. So,
And
do you think there's?
another potential partner in the conversation.
Mhm.
Reardon is 100 years old.
Mhm.
It takes a lot to maintain that building.
Yeah.
The park manager's been there 25 years. She might be a great resource about the realities of maintaining a historic property that's open to the public.
Yeah.
And we have partners, local partners like Loveland that have done work there that also might have a voice. So
That'd
just
be great.
trying to get started, right?
Yeah, and we have talked, I don't think we've talked to Riordan, and that would be really smart. We talked to like some of the theaters that have done this in like Scottsdale and in Tucson, the Rialto and things like that. But I think there's still a lot of work. I think we're trying, the conversation has moved into what is a way to achieve some of the benefit without some of the risk and liability. But we haven't figured out that final answer in the manager's office directly.
We get all the right conversation.
I like that, and I broke this down. So the Orpheum is, the discussion might be where the city decides to have a relationship there some way somehow.
Right.
Doesn't mean that it's the end of an arts district conversation with all of you. And I'm with you on that, Carla, on how we need to do that. But I wanted you to know that, don't worry, Dave and I are at the table to say, wait a second, wait a minute, because we know that our funding, although it might seem in BBB sometimes robust, it could actually become very unrobust if we were just paying for maintenance of buildings and things like that. We don't want that to what these programs to be about.
And I think we're about to learn that lesson with some of the downtown mile projects a little bit, and the one-time funding required for that. Like, it's been a long time since our group has had to face the reality of a really large cost.
Well, and remember, like, beautification wouldn't be appropriate for an arts venue other than the outside structural and physical enhancements, right? Like, we could redo the facade, but we could not use beautification funding, so it would really be arts and science, which is the smaller fund, if that was the direction that the manager's office wanted. Anyways,
I'm gonna try to steer this back on.
Yeah.
So, well, I know we have about 20 minutes to lunch. Why don't we jump into the projects on the horizon? And we probably won't be able to get to the voting, but let's start it and then we'll bring it back after lunch. So we're gonna explore, FY 27 and FY 28. So, first of all, let's talk about, look how many projects we think are gonna finish up. You know, guys, And honestly, this is the last time you're gonna see that British photograph.
No way.
It is finishing. We had the construction kickoff meeting. It happened. It happened.
When it's gone, I don't believe it.
It is, I know. It's been it's gonna finish this year for like the last 2-3 years, so I
You joke that it's cursed though. I mean,
it is cursed, but it's actually, we have a vendor under contract, we had the construction kickoff meeting. We ordered the bench, that's gonna be the only reason January is there is because the bench won't arrive until January. The rest of it's gonna be done before then, but we just can't install that bench until it arrives, so it's going to be done. Again, you've already heard from Kristen on the African American mural expansion. Hey, we're, actively working on that multi-road underpass for the downtown mile. We'll get all we're involved in is the design that's picking the photographs. So we're handing it off. Our part will be done in June. Motion refurbishment, should be done by May. We got, some of these plaques done. Russell is gonna come in November. Rockman should be done in the spring, and, the preservation plaza, we actually haven't, we're a little worried if haven't heard from that landscape architect in a while, gotta probably go prod him a little bit. Hopefully that design's gonna be done here soon, and then, we can, get that painted for the centennial year. It'll be, kind of right when the summer is still happening. And then, of course, you already heard about the asphalt event. So you see nine nice projects getting finished up here. This isn't gonna appear in the FY 27, 28. I'm gonna put it in 29. And then if we need to move it up to 28, I got an update on where the Rio de Flag Phase 1 is. Yeah, from Kristen Cameron. Okay, so just so everybody knows, the Rio de Flag, which affects a number of our projects, is underfunded. Therefore, more funding is needed. Phase 1, okay, and we have, so this is federal and Army Corps of Engineers. The phase 1 funding is something that the additional funding can take from things that have been already congressionally approved funding that weren't used on other projects. That is the one that's definitely most likely to go faster. And that application is in those additional funds. Phase 2, which is kind of north of Route 66, that will need additional congressional funding. Given that Congress is not doing anything right now, and there's a government shutdown and there's lots of politics going on, Flagstaff remains optimistic, but I could say this phase 2 can be a number of years out there. But we think that we will be able to we're working on the design as we are, but moving that sculpture, FY 29 is my best guess, and if it actually goes faster, FY 28, it could also go slower, and it could be FY 35. I'm just gonna be quite honest about that, but,
I think when you're out there, it's pretty cool where it is, right? So I don't feel like a deep rush.
no, I don't really want to rush it either, because what I'm hoping is that actually by the time it happens, that somebody figures out a way to redesign the civic space so that we don't have to do it.
Yeah.
So that is like, I have to tell you, my ultimate goal in the back of my head. But I don't know if that's, if that's gonna be possible, this, considering how much change could possibly happen in this space and with all the moving parts. I would love for them to be able to shift the bus bay down a little bit and not move this closer, and then we would be done. Except for maybe paying for the splash pad, but
And
you know.
I'm intentionally being quiet, but I'm the designer for that.
I know, yes, you have to be quiet.
Maybe why Jen was looking down the road.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was just glancing, just in case, if somebody wanted to consider that. But anyway, but you won't see it in the FY 27-28. But, I just, obviously we finished up the project, we're installing the plaques next week. And so, but it does have that possibility of moving, our reoccurring projects, the beautification action grants. So I just want to talk about the budget a little bit. Because we had a record number come in the spring and a record number come in the fall, even though we increased funding by 50%, last year, it doesn't look to be enough. And so I'm going to consider, asking for an increase. This is reoccurring. So therefore, it's a bigger ask from budget committee, but I don't know if it's gonna be all the way up to 200,000 versus 125, because I have to look at staff time that will be committed and see, we might have to do it, but we might have to actually start, not giving everybody who is, comes up with a good project, we might have to start prioritizing. We had 14, it would be more like, reducing it to 10 or 12 per cycle. But I'm still looking for ways that we can keep going the way we are going, but that means that we have to have another step in our evaluation process then of prioritizing which we haven't had to do. Again, this is a great problem to have, because they're such good projects. It's not like they're not good projects. You saw the list. We want to fund as many as possible. We don't really want to make this a big competitive thing, but, we are short and we are short. And right now we're looking for a one-time fix for this year. I can tell you more in November. Dave and I are actively working on this.
So,
And so,
I was gonna say, I do have a question on this, Brenda.
go ahead.
So one of the things I've noticed with the BIA grants is that they are starting to kind of edge into some of the arts groups that also will be looking for funding from Creative Flagstaff. Because I think some of our more established artists are starting to clue into the fact that those are robust. And I am wondering if some of this isn't maybe a shift of some Creative Flagstaff funds to BIA grants. Because, I mean, and I know that would be really, really controversial with the Creative Flagstaff folks, so I just want to be really careful that I'm spitballing this. But I do feel like our BIA grants are really some of the most grassroots possible programming we could do as an institute. And I just wonder if, as some of these more sophisticated applicants move in and they kind of push some of our grassroots and maybe less sophisticated applicants that might end up at the bottom of a selection pool if we have to be more selective. Like, I want to think about this.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Are you saying that we start pushing some of those applicants to the Creative Flagstaff grant round?
Maybe.
Because one of the things that's been interesting is Creative Flagstaff, partly through the ArtX projects, but also in general, we have seen them move from more funding of nonprofits into potentially arts projects. And so it is an interesting place where those two have kind of come towards each other a little bit.
I think what I want to say I'm doing is I'm making not a long discussion request right now, but I am making an observation that we are starting to see some overlap. And that maybe we could consider where that overlap is happening. Because the traffic boxes and the beautification grants, one thing I really like about them is sometimes we receive some very unsophisticated applicants. That are making their first foray into the arts. And I think that we are growing artists and we are growing the arts community when we do that. And I like the idea of there being sort of tiers of application and maybe more sophisticated grants and maybe there's a little grant. Maybe there's like the
The baby BIA.
Mini grant, maybe BIA.
Well, let's see if we get to the
So-
place where we actually are
Yeah.
having to deny people.
Okay.
And the thing is, of course, I will have to tell you, as we have gotten a record number of applications, the project grants at Creative Flagstaff have also gotten a record application. And I know we have members of that committee here, they have $125,000 to give out.
Yeah.
And they have $300,000 worth of applications.
Yes.
So almost, so 2/3 of those are gonna be denied.
Yes.
So just so that you know that our demand is also reflecting their demand.
Yes.
So,
Turns out there's a lot of cool stuff happening in town.
Yeah.
that means, yeah,
And I want to be careful to say that I am not advocating a reduction in anybody's budget, but just a consideration of.
yes, and I think that is, something that, we can, we can consider, but sometimes when you do look at things like, do you want to add some funds to our BAA grants? Well, it might be some of those nonprofits that are gonna come forward for that. And this is gonna be something, but see if we get to the point where we have to actually say, we're gonna cut off, and then we do have to come up with a criteria by which you're gonna prioritize, so that's something. But I do want, we are gonna be requesting an increase. Trying to cover the increase for this year in one way, and then going forward, and then it might not be able to be 200,000 because that might be too many projects for staff to carry.
Can you just tell us? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'm low on that totem pole, but I do have a plan.
Yeah. I just, our collections and maintenance, obviously we had a backlog. So we've been doing a lot with that funding. We have had 40,000 in beautification, 25,000 in arts and sciences. We got a one-time, $100,000 for the refurbishment of the Route 66 preservation. We've, been doing things like, motion, within our current budget, and also, like the Gandy Dancer, all that's been within the current. We're gonna have to look at that train, see, even replacing those logs probably have to be converted to next year. Maybe we ask for one-time funding for that. So, we are probably gonna have some, I think I'm gonna ask for just the reoccurring to be increased some, and then also maybe ask one time for replacing those logs for 2 spots. So, other recurring project, well, Creative Flagstaff. So here's this big contract. We had in this last fiscal year, a lot of one-time money. We have the reoccurring amount, which is a base that will keep getting filled, but we were able to add a lot onto both the GOS project innovation and capacity building grants and the EarnX. That may not be the case as much next year because the funding may be down. And this is our smaller budget. That's tidy as point, 7.5%. This was $1 million contract this last year that took up a significant amount of the EDP funding. We want to keep this as robust as possible. We do have other things in arts and sciences. It tends not to be the infrastructure projects. It tends to be like the art in the parks, as I call it, the multicultural county park sculpture exhibition, sculpture along the Foots trails, the idea for the Thorpe Park 3D exhibition. So the kind of things that aren't big in the infrastructure, it's just like, and it's not by roadways. So it's kind of more interior, not interior buildings, but interior, but actually an indoor art exhibition would be in here as well. So that's the other things that'll be vying for that funding. So I just, know that we have $440,000 that's recurring, for grants. And, all the rest of that is that we gave this year, 740,000, 300,000 of that was done. We're just starting with that 3. So I also want to say that this part is actually not shaped by BPAC as much as it is actually shaped by upper management. And Dave, I don't know if you wanted to add a
Yeah.
lot to that.
So the contract is structured such that it does fluctuate. You might wonder, like, how does it work that it changes back and forth? And there is a recurring piece that is locked in through the contract, but they're aware that BBB funding capacity, changes how much can function in there. And so, a lot of times when we get our capacity from finance, we sit down and really work on what
We were,
BPAC's looking for. We were
Tammy down.
Yeah, we work on, like, what is it that Janet and the arts and science team needs, that the VPAC's talking about for arts and sciences, and what can we do to help support the nonprofit sector? Either in capacity grants, which they're not recurring, right? So again, that recurring one-time piece. What Creative Flagstaff does is recurring funding goes out to do general operating support type grants, which has been what keep a lot of our nonprofits vibrant in the community. The one time that Jana mentioned, that usually goes into either project grants or what are called capacity grants, which allow a nonprofit to buy something or to invest in something that they're not going to need the next year to completely redo, but can make it happen. So just as a little bit of an example. So we sit down and look at those capacity questions and look at the contract and try to figure out how much how much arts and science programming needs and how much Creative Flagstaff we can put towards it, and then find the balance. So that's what you do.
and so your participation, we tried to move the number on the project, the grant committees, and I think the vice chair Luan is on capacity, and I don't think we've made one yet for the artifacts, but I don't, because that committee hasn't started to approach yet, but I know I gave a couple of suggestions to Julie Soka. So she'll probably be reaching out soon. I sit on the GOS because it's the biggest part of my hands, but I really have to make sure that, I help oversee that the Creative Flagstaff is also, following city guidelines and distributing those funds as well. But this is much more staff intensive than it is, feedback intensive. So flowers, I don't think we need to say too much. Highly successful program, except for the contract is up and we are having to go into a new 5-year contract. So there will be a phone call out for proposals. I don't think we'll get too many proposals. I think we'll get one from our current vendor. Maybe there'll be 1 or 2 more out there, but it's hopefully should be a fairly quick evaluation, but it does need to go before council because it's it's a $125,000 a year. Right now, I anticipate it's going to be higher because of costs going up. Outreach. This is something that, takes up a spot in our work plan every year. I want you to know that the public art map is out to print. That's something else we've been promising the last 2 years. That will be done, but it is actually in print, and we are going to actually update the printed copy every year. We're going to only print so many each year, and we're going to actually adjust it because we are producing so many projects. We'll get the digital art map even updated more often than that, but we have reorganized the public art map. We can't wait to show it to you. But it's by areas of Flagstaff, so it's much easier to go see the public art in one area of town. Yeah, we have it in it. So we keep up with our photography. So we don't see any budget changes though for this line item. we don't see any budget changes to this line item, are fabulously successful. There was indigenous representation first, but it is now, the multicultural academy, part sculpture exhibition. As you know, you guys, we did the first 3-year, contract with the county, and then we're doing the next however long you want to make it. You know, we'll be willing to do a 5-year contract, and if the county's willing, then, you know, we'll renew for 5 more years, and, the funding's been adequate. So we don't need to increase that. Traffic signal cabinets, again, you know, actually they all just got installed. The one that's gonna come up for next year is we're gonna actually do a wrap of, a bookmobile for the library. Yeah, something a little different, yeah. And as we promised, you saw one come through the BIA grants, but some of those runners up, from our last time, we have actually offered them a utility cabinet, just as a direct select. So we'll be going forward with those for this fiscal year. APS has said after the first winter snows, they will evaluate, how it impacted their cabinets. And we can maybe move from a pilot and get a whole new slew of APS cabinets for next year. Their big squareness really makes them better, actually better cabinets for us to use. So we will add more on Route 66, but Janet Dean says she will not authorize more until the spring, so that probably won't go out to the next fiscal year. You know, that called for us.
Thank you so much
Yes,
for the one other
yes.
of that sad little
Oh,
thing
I
I
know.
needed
I
to
could
be
have
covered
heard that.
badly. It was so much better. I'm telling you.
It was a rusted one,
It
so
was so awful. And I was like, please.
I know, 3 years, but we got it done.
It's so good.
Yeah, yeah,
But we
so.
haven't seen any problems with having done it, so hopefully the PS will.
And she wants, she just wants to have them more still, it's really nice with the snow, the problem. They want a winter. So that they're not worried about summer at all. Over here, they're probably in the south of Arizona is where they have to worry about the heat. Here, they want to see how the moisture with the snowfall affects their cabinets with the reps on. And so she said, and talked to me like February, March, and then they'll be willing to enter into new, and there's so many people want this cabinet, so that will grow. That was fantastic. All right, I think this is a good point because that was our last reoccurring, and we're gonna go into project start and continuing after lunch. Okay? So let's, maybe about a 45-minute break. Is that for lunch? Is that good? All right, so, Annalisa, you can direct us on how we, Dean, welcome back, everybody. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of our retreat. Yay! So, projects that have started and continuing, that will automatically, obviously be in the FY 27, work plan. The Buffalo Park water tank, as you know, we have the survey out for the public. The call to artists is being prepared, as we speak. It's gonna be a 2-step RSOQ for 5 finalists. 5 finalists are gonna be given honorariums to create proposals. And then there'll be public input on those proposals as well as some panel. So a little bit different. I think for such a public facing project in a park that everybody uses, that was an appropriate approach. But we will be requesting, additional money for those proposals, to pay for them. This is a big tank. This is gonna be a 360-degree all the way around, mural. So it is gonna be about a $300,000 project to the artist. And that's based on square footage. So obviously some parts will probably be more detailed that are more, facing the public, and then some parts that will be hidden now probably be a little less detailed. All right, so, Huntington Drive Gabion Wall, which also has some Route 66 plantings. The plantings, you know, are being focused on first, so we can get them in, before the centennial summer. And then the Gabion wall will kind of probably linger the year after, but we're well on our way on the, landscaping improvements. Okay, Joe Montavo mosaic redo, as you said, that, mosaic's coming down on Tuesday, but it is going to be reimagined on a much better wall and on a sunnier side. And given the reflective elements in the mosaic, I think that that will be, you know, really sweet. So we have $100,000 right now. Actually, the proposal from the artist is about, 62,000. I don't think we're gonna need all the funding. I want her to add a few more things, but we're well within budget.
Is it generally gonna be similar or the same as the previous iteration?
Yes, very much similar. I mean, it's the,
for procurement, right?
yes, for procurement, sole source has been approved.
Okay.
And so there's parts that were produced by school children on the side. You see there's like little squares on the side. Obviously, those are gonna be unique because they're gonna be different. There's a couple of things like she reordered some of the orange tiles she needed more of. They sent back a different colored batch, and so she had to she wants to make them all the same batch this time. So the little tweaks like that, but no, it's gonna be substantially the same.
Cool.
All right, Lone Tree Overpass. Again, this is kind of, you know, this is gonna go on, ahead of the Rio. So, we will be, beginning construction, kind of, on the piers and the lowering of the tracks, kind of July 1, of 2026. So it's definitely gonna be a FY 27 start project. Now, right now we have the entire amount in FY 27. I'm sure some of that'll be carried over, and we might even talk about splitting it up. You know, with transportation, because we know it's not all gonna be spent in 1 year, and that will help with that cap. But the art aesthetics is 2.3 million. This is our big baby. It's a big infrastructure project. Okay, Spruce Swash Wedge, as you know, we have the artists on board. We've had the kickoff meeting. We've had, you know, the public input survey. We've had the focus group. They're off designing, right now. So again, we're gonna probably increase some of these budgets by 5% just due to rising costs. So right now it's at 641,000. So, you know, that might be 671,000, you know, when you see it in the budget. That's just what we're hearing on a lot of construction projects. This has to do with tariffs. This has to do with a lot of things that are going on. So we just want to be prepared. Switzer Canyon Roundabout, you know where we are, just approve the artist. Once we get the contract, we'll be probably, you know, by the time the contract's signed thing, we'll probably be kicking this off around December 1st. And so again, we have 447,000 in the budget. And again, we might be, you know, increasing that by 5%. I have to say a majority of that's kind of going to the landscape architect versus the artist. Just because there's more engineering and things that have to actually be done. And that's gonna be in there. If they're a landscape and engineering firm, so it's, you know, spelled. Okay, this one. So this is also going automatically. You're not gonna be reprioritizing. We're gonna just go ahead and put these. They were approved for FY 26, but they were not initiated because either special requests came in, other problems. But what we wanted to do with the alley improvements, as you know, was to underground the wires, so things like a canopy and other things would be possible. We kind of hit a slow spot with APS on this.
Yeah.
Go ahead. please.
So APS actually voluntarily had said they were willing to do kind of a preliminary estimate for us. They wouldn't be full on engineering, but it would give us an idea of what kind of budget would be required. Unfortunately, that person left. And, you know, in the way of a favor, once they were understaffed, that favor went to, like, it'll still happen, but it's been about a year, and my impression is it'll still be a couple million. We could choose, of course, to budget to pay for this study, but APS had said they do it for free or at their cost, and unfortunately, you know, the turnover situation messed with it.
Right, so we, we have good contact with
They're very
Janet
kind.
Dean,
Yep.
and so it's an ongoing conversation. And once we get that, then we actually have to get it into, Public Works, or, planning as well. So I feel like this is gonna be a gradual, unfolding until we can get there. Because we have to get the buy-in to, do the drainage and perhaps resurface, as well.
I will say there was one section where it's just APS, and I think a private contractor would be able to just bury the lines.
Right,
And so that was kind of this interesting, like, can we get the pilot to where it's not telecom, it's just APS, and we wouldn't need public works, it would just be a contractor. Like, the idea was to try to find that, like, first attempt where it's not quite as chaotic to prove concept.
right. The only thing is, if you're undergrounding and digging out, why aren't you just going ahead and doing the drainage?
Yeah, you would hopefully do the drainage.
Yeah, but, maybe we can get, some things like that done. This is going at a slow crawl, but it is getting attention. Any questions about the only improvements? Okay. East Side Streetscape Beautification, also one where we had the idea we were gonna do a plan, hire a consultant to tell us where the best place was to go. We got diverted,
Mhm.
by Metro Plan, say, hey, we have a safe walk to school yards project. And we think you can just piggyback onto us. So we devoted some time to those meetings and kind of hit a dead end. So now we're gonna go back to our original plan. I'm sorry, I've already hit the window. I don't know if it's okay or not. No, I'm not sure. But so now we kind of have to reinitiate that process of hiring our own consultants with the consultation of Tom, the engineer. So we'll try to launch that now in FY 27. Again, in that first step, I consider this a multi-year process. That's how we have the funding set out. We're just gonna have to kind of carry over for this project, but it's gonna be in FY 27.
I will say that I'm very pleased with the new fencing, the new drainage projects.
Yeah.
On the corridor. Nice first step.
Exactly. And, we also, as part of the spruce wash wedge, got a larger radius as part of the spruce wash wedge. So that came from the schoolyards project. So we are gonna have more room for the kids to stand on that corner. So that actually happened out of that process. So it's not like nothing came out of that process. We got clued into some things. Fourth Street, Market Roundabout, again, it's kind of the next one up. We have to, when we do these formal procurements, like Switzer Canyon, Spruce Watch Wedge, we need procurement involved. They actually run those. And so once Buffalo Park and the flowers are done, then we can do Fourth Street. We also have to wait for APS to sign off. Yes, it's done, but ADOT. ADOT has actually signed the project back over to the city, and that actually has to happen before we're allowed access.
There's also a massive construction project about to happen with that southeast corner.
So, yeah, so, but it will be next up. But I have to, Teddy and procurement, I have to space them out and have to give them a month breather in between each projects because we get so many applicants. So it's in the queue, but it's gonna be spaced.
It's probably best that it pushes a little.
Yeah.
Given the changes in context at that point.
Yes, so, then, and everybody can learn how to drive around about.
They already know it's good.
Yeah, okay, so I love it, yeah, but, Dark Park, as you know, that in order to take on Buffalo, water tank, but, that call will be launched this June. All right, so now, Now we're going into the ones that you will be prioritizing. This was approved for FY 27 last year, the Green Schoolyards Grant. And this was an idea that, came up because BIA grants can't often be used for schools because they're not publicly accessible in the way it's defined. We've talked with sustainability off and on about, just allowing for more growth that can be within the schoolyard and not seen by the public. And it would require a whole separate grant. So that project and that idea is up for prioritization again. Again, we would probably write the guidelines one year and then we would have to go to budget to ask for some of that reoccurring money, in order to fund. The indoor art exhibition idea was, to launch a portable collection and start, creating an indoor collection and then exhibiting it. That was also approved for FY 27 at last year's retreat. We do have an interested party, to display artwork, whether we own it or not, maybe to curate it, and that is, Mountain Line in the DCC. They would like us to have a rotating exhibition in their lobby. So that, they have approached us, and I said, well, we happen to have this indoor exhibition, kind of project that we wanted to launch, and if that's how we launch it, instead of, accumulating, permanent, do something temporary each year and exhibit in your lobby, then we can also, use it that way. So, just wanted to let you know that, but that is, Mountain Line has kind of stepped forward and has asked us.
Such a nice space for that kind of.
Yes, and it is a nice space for that kind of thing, whereas City Hall, they're a little problematic, aquaplexes are a little problematic. We have a lot of public spaces in which to, think of doing this. But a permanent collection, if we were to do that, that is actually a little bit more for the city offices, and to start, purchasing art, for that purpose. And that's what a lot of, city, public art programs do. We're one of the few in the state that doesn't have one. So there's that one. And then the school walkways project, that is that little, is the retaining wall in front of the school, on that, roundabout corner that we thought a community mosaic. Have an artist lead a community mosaic project there. And I think that's still a very viable project, but I do think it should wait. This is my recommendation. I do think it should wait till after the roundabout art is done. It just seems to me that's a logical order, but we disagree. But instead of, going, because it's gonna definitely be a different artist, because it's gonna be a community led, and it's gonna be created by the parents and students and the neighborhood. And so, I just thought maybe it could be moved a little bit later, but it is right now, was approved for FY 27.
It'd be really nice if, from the public's perspective, that if the sort of actual installation of that roundabout and some of the public facing aspects of the roundabout art could happen while the mosaic is happening. So that it feels like, because we get a lot of asks, can we all students?
Yes.
And so if the roundabout itself is a professional artist that is bringing, public input, if we can have that mosaic sort of travel the track at the same time, I think it would feel like that whole installation was a little more community influenced.
Yeah, that might be hard to do. It might be
I'm
hard
just
to
thinking
do,
vibes.
but you can, it could be that, that goes as, again, in steps, or it can be, and it could be part of the public input. On that, it doesn't have to be a local artist to lead this, but it seems to me that we do have a couple of very talented artists that could lead a project like that, who are teachers.
I'm not suggesting
And,
that it be the same artist as the roundabout artist,
Right.
I'm just suggesting that there be a little bit of a concurrence, just to get the impression of a little bit more community input into that area.
That's something to consider, but that is kind of construct, and that'll be obviously an opposite to my recommendation, which is
No, I'm saying we already have, like, we would already know what the roundabout are. Would be.
okay, so you like.
I'm just saying, like, once the installation, like, when we get further down the road with the installation of the roundabout art, so that the completion of the roundabout art happens around the same time. that you-
To finish the design.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that could be a part of this, you know, so that like the students can put their mosaic up, and the roundabout can go up, and it's like a bit of a transformation, but it feels like the community has to participate.
Right. And I'm hearing. So I'm gonna take that into consideration.
Going contrary to your recommendation.
The other thing I have to say though, is that roundabout obviously is a lot larger. It has larger than Canyon. And it has a very dominant presence. That wall has become very small in comparison. You know, and so it's,
Kids sit on it.
it's and the kids sit on it and, you know, I know we rejected kind of different like basic finishes, but you know, one of the things is that we might want to see, you know, what does it call for? You know, the roundabout is definitely, is very dominant. Yes. Very dominant visually.
There's
Depending on what goes in.
there's another conversation that we had too about the public works request for the plants. Because what they've done is they've taken the natural spots for the plantings and they've built them with black cinders. And every time it rains, they're just blowing out. So there might be, they're just everywhere.
Right.
And so there's actually already flood damage on the roundabout. So there may be a conversation about how to like maybe fill that in with something and do some mosaic or something.
Yeah,
Like,
well, like it's, well, again, that'll be like, you know, in the purview of the hardscape, you know, the landscape architect, but yes, I think we can improve on those centers
Yes,
dramatically. Absolutely dramatically.
And challenges.
Okay.
I've seen it. Higher frequency, and certainly roundabouts are a safety challenge for people getting out there to maintain them
Yes, they are.
and maintaining irrigation out there with other road work, but hardscape is not, no maintenance, so that,
Right.
yeah.
and these the ones I'm referring to are actually the ones that are not in the, it's the external
Yep,
areas where they've got basically the, but I've just noticed that aesthetically, it's a bunch of holes that used to have black cinders in them, but now the black cinders are in the street and the holes are supposed, all right. So they
Okay,
don't fare well.
so we might have a bigger project, I might have to add more money. Okay, good to know.
They've got some weather challenges.
Yeah, it can get chemical, fix it, yeah, it's take care of it. It should be. Okay, so now we have 3 new projects. The airport, that you all approved in the last meeting.
Yes.
So, and here we are, again, 150,000 for design in year 1 and 600,000 for construction and installation in year 2. If that could be considered for FY 27 or for later, as depending on how you prioritize. Heritage Square, you know, the budget proposal is $75,000 for design in year 1. If $352,000 for year 2, and that would be split between the fence and the sculpture. You know, we will be working carefully with the Home Tribe Development Corporation. They will be on the selection panel. You know, of all this for our downtown business and the city manager's office as well. High interest in this project. So that's another one for consideration for FY 27 or later. And then Jovan Toya Senior Center and Community Center proposing $325,000 to the care of 5 statues. And again, this one, like I said, should be less staff time than the other ones. Because of using on-call and because the sculptures are already fabricated. So this one can go quicker than than the others.
I'm excited that we'll find a way to keep some of these soldiers.
Yes, it is, because there's some that very much people did not want to let go.
Yeah.
And I think, and those artists will be extremely excited to be reconsidered. Okay, so. Here it lines up. The recurring, the ones already started and continuing, or they were definitely slotted in, they aren't initiated, the two emerging, and then 3 slots. But you're like, Jenna, but you only said 20 and it says 22. Okay. 2 are being taken, 2 of the reoccurring, maybe handled by other staff, other than our main 3 staff. We have that in the project line, so I'm gonna go ahead. And I might be able to take 2 of the reoccurring out. And that would be the flowers program with the beautification and action grants. So, that will be finalized, I think, soon. And, if so, then that's why I'm gonna have you go ahead and rank 22 in anticipation that we'll have other staff take this 2 off. Okay, so now you have to, right next to you, Michael or Audra, pass out the blue sheets. And you need to rank the top 6 candidates in the order of your preference. Number 1 being your first preference to go in FY '27.
So I have a question about the indoor art exhibit.
Mhm.
I'm in favor of the indoor art exhibit. If it's in a space like this. I'm not in favor of the indoor art exhibit if it's in
And it
a
could,
less aesthetically
and I think,
advantageous space.
so you're gonna have to just balance what responsibility is. I cannot 100% tell you at this point because I have no agreement with the DCC at this time. I can't 100% tell you that will go. I know that they're interested.
But where would the fallback be? Would it be city dollars?
It would be more moving towards that permanent, that's just a portable collection that goes between, city offices. And displayed whenever we could, any part of, First Friday Art Blocks, we will look for all those opportunities to display as part of, First Friday artworks and things like that. But it would obviously take all of that.
Jenna,
Yeah,
what if our response to us to rank the 3?
because I want you to rank
Okay.
the 6 candidates on the left for the 3 spots. So your number 1 is 1, and your number 6 is 6. And, I will tell you that Commissioner Cruz did get a preview and he has stuff in his rankings. So I do have them. And remember, these are discussions, these are not solid 100%. They're recommendations to staff. That it has to go to upper management, other considerations before I put them in the 5-year plan. But, we've been able to honor your rankings pretty closely. Oh, and if you would put your name at the top, please put your name at the top, just your last names. Fine. Just so I have a record. Sorry, I already failed on the instructions. I'm not a good listener.
You're cutting the bill.
That's on my report card.
Do we have to have a parent teacher conference? Yeah, she did it, you know.
Very enthusiastic presentation. Exciting. How good forever. Balance. But at the same time, they also. That's a you problem.
I'm halfway through.
But I do, it's really an interesting thing to think about why people select. Already to be very viable. You know, right.
Yeah.
Long way, okay. Yes. Is it?
You know, it's like the very close. And it's super dramatic too, so it'll just be like it's water, so that's all. Maybe water once or twice a day.
Sounds great.
Yes.
You right back.
We were talking about.
Thank you.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that just, are supposed to be very valuable and she wants to know.
Then you go to sleep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then I just,
Yeah, you're in the
yeah.
Anything I feel energized.
Right. Honestly, this one, one of the hardest ones to.
Me too.
Yeah.
There's unit 9, 4, 5, and 6.
Oh, I thought I was supposed to.
Do all of them.
Yeah.
How big decisions ahead? Oh, boy.
I should have.
They all do it.
Right, yeah, I think maybe I got
It's like we continue.
Oh, see, 3 different reasons and we all got the same answer.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed seeing the game out of the thing.
You're just gonna recover this
Although the
weekend.
content of like, the
Oh, that's right.
We get to.
No. But I think that's the moment. It is the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that one. I wouldn't.
Yeah, that's the first thing they see about Flagstaff.
Yeah.
When I tell.
But it's like,
people,
look at you.
as soon as I got off the other flights. Maybe one more people.
Yeah. It's, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's ability to, like,
Yeah.
it's all for me, and like, y'all feel like I'm here, I mean, so if I was never been.
He's gonna have a lot of reconnecting to do, like, he'll just be there, like, yeah, they both like, no, his friends would be like really nice, like, his boyfriend that is the guy that one time we stayed at her house,
My Saint Sarah,
like,
with the airport. Again, watch. But he's so fascinating.
yeah.
So then we don't
I
start.
hope he feels good enough to do it.
Okay, I have results. All right, so the we talked about, was the airport terminal. And tied for in points was Heritage Square, Montoya, so we kind of exited to the top. After that was the indoor art exhibit, the school walkway and the green schoolyard was last. So of that group, now those bottom two automatically part of the conversation, okay? And as you know, like I noted that the indoor art is kind of next, and so sometimes if a project gets delayed and I can slip that one in there, I'll do that. So, always rest assured, because projects do get delayed, like the East Side Streetscape got delayed, and that happens, just in the natural course of projects. So anytime I can start a project, I will. But now I need your help, Annalisa.
Sure.
Is, you have the PowerPoint. So what is it possible, I don't know, can you go in and just, 20 put in airport terminal? And then you save it?
Sorry, can you say that one more time, just a little bit louder?
So look at number 20.
On line 20 in the draft work plan, we want.
Thank you.
Put in airport terminal. Doesn't matter, you don't have to make it pretty. And then, the next three, you put, Heritage Square. And then Montoya. And you just put in Montoya. Okay. And then I'll need your help when we get a little later to add the other ones. But let's go into, because we're gonna take the three and, put them up for consideration for FY '28. But we do have some other ones to consider for FY '28 as well. So we have, the Butler Avenue roundabouts. And this is from I-40 to 4th Street. And there definitely are going to be two. We've heard this from Trevor Henry, head of capital projects. They haven't exactly placed the one closest to I-40. The one at 4th Street is definitely placed. That call is, I think maybe it's being completed. So I'm gonna have to add additional funding. Obviously, I only funded for one. So it always seemed like that second one was pretty iffy, so I didn't put in funding, but we will be putting in funding for two. But again, this is something, it's not constructed. We can't go in until after construction is done. So that's something to keep in mind. The city hall lawn. I'm sorry,
So that was, I was just trying to double check. Because look, this one is showing like an intermediate road, but there will be one more roundabout at Fort and Butler. This isn't including.
It's over there.
Yes, it's up there.
So the roundabout that's shown is Fourth and Butler.
No,
That's-
There's two roundabouts on the screen.
There's two roundabouts.
no, that's Harold. Fourth is not on the screen.
Oh, Fourth is not on the screen?
No, that's Harold, right?
Oh, okay.
So, but.
I think
we're not-
that's the choice between the two. I'm sorry, but 4th Street roundabout, I apologize. I realized I didn't include all the pictures. That's where the choice is going, the
Okay.
train. And then 4th Street roundabout is definitely going.
Okay, so there's not a third one.
No, there's
It's just gonna be one of those two.
It's
Okay,
gonna be one of those two, and that's not decided yet.
okay, thanks, Janet. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. And I was just like, oh, that's 4th Street. No, it's not 4th Street.
It's not far away.
Yeah, but there's definitely going to be two. That's, and I'm like, oh, wow, great. Okay, another $500,000. Let's do it.
I think it's also, just one other thing with that 4th Street roundabout, I think it's also just really important to point out that is the Powell extension.
Yeah.
And if people are not paying attention to that, that is going to become a primary thoroughfare.
It is the geographic center of Flagstaff.
So,
Which makes your brain twist a little, but it is the geographic center of Flagstaff.
And I do think that now, that we have in some ways very simple, but, you have the art at, Fox Fun Park, we have the Children's Memorial. We're gonna have Rockman, placed, in the back. We have the traffic signal cameras, we have, the one at Sparrow, we have the Raven, we have the Fox. And then this is gonna be a nice, it is gonna make like a continuity of projects for us. I haven't got my mind wrapped around what these two could possibly be. These could, depending on where they go, become a much more monumental type of thing, possibly, so.
It goes by
Up to see, especially if it goes next to the freeway.
Yeah.
That's gonna make a lot of difference in how we approach that art. Yeah, very much so. Okay, the City Hall lawn. I think we're ready.
Yeah.
This has been a discussion, a heavy discussion between the leadership of pros and us. But it is gonna be a little bit about pros and Bass taking kind of the leadership of the project. We aren't gonna wait for, the idea was we were, gonna wait for the Rio to flag. We're not gonna wait for the Rio to flag. The Rio to flag can respond to this design versus the other way around. We'll need to know what's going on with the downtown mile, but that's a lot easier to know. So, right now, we have the 75,000 for design in FY 28 and 300,000 for FY 29. Process did good even starting in FY 29, but they just they kind of want to say to go, want to start approaching, council. And they want us to take the leadership, although obviously sustainability and public works have to be, consulted and involved, but, have us kind of take the leadership. This can go a lot of different ways. There's a lot of needs that want to be fulfilled. But getting rid of the grass is definitely, one of them, but retaining a public space for, protest, also extremely important for this, place at City Hall. But then, how much do we want to put art there or not? Or do we want to keep it a much more natural, looking place? We do know that once the Rio goes and the downtown mile goes, we're gonna have to move one statue, the pioneer. We're shipping the eagle. We're gonna have to find a new home for that. And that's gonna be controversial. Say that statue needs a lot of love and refurbishment, and refurbishing it now because we know it's gonna be moved. But we're gonna need to find an appropriate spot where it can be loved again. But we, don't know where that will be, but, it will probably be in a park. So we'll see. Kind of about the Pioneer Museum, but they're still not really functioning. But anyway, City Hall lawn is back up. The north edge, Milton, the Pocket Park at Santa Fe in Milton. So this is part of the downtown mile. It's that pork chop there. That awkward left-hand turn. That's gonna expand and connect to the sidewalk. It's gonna become bigger and it's gonna become accessible from the sidewalk. We aren't going to be designing that pocket park. This is gonna be J2 group, but they're gonna put in points for sculptures for us. So we won't go into after the fact, but it is gonna be a stellar corner where people will still be turning to show off some sculpture. And it kind of will connect to the City Hall lawn. They're be kind of seen as a continuous project, but maybe this is where we put the art versus the City Hall lawn. Just some thoughts, nothing set in stone here. This is all future thinking. And then, of course, the First Street Bridge. Again, reinforced cage needs to be finished. It's in the 5-year plan right now for FY 28. $300,000. And then you also had, 50,000 in each year to do one sculpture, FY 28, 29, 30, 31. This is in arts and sciences, is to add more, sculpture along the bus trails. Obviously, I'm showing two pieces, one, the Flagstonian, which is there, Rockman, which is going to go in. And then, just to, fanciful pieces about what could possibly, happen, down the road. But, do we want that to start in FY '28? And so now, Annie, this is where I need your help again. I need you to put in, the three, over to the left, see the FY carryover? I need you to put the indoor art exhibit in. The school walkway. And then the last one was green schoolyard. Okay, now, so you can see my draft work plan, we got set 4 spots. So, but rank 1 through 8. And remember, anything that's not selected will just be pushed over into FY '29. We don't lose it. It just gets pushed. Okay, so, I think there's some white ones, and passing them out. No, I don't think one. I'm not voting, honestly. Yeah, not really. You're saying it's always really surprising. Which one? That looks controversy. I bet you I could pick the one off this list that would cause it. I know. No, it's not. A couple of these would be really high. Okay. Thank you. There's more to enter here. It's gonna, so if you guys all just wanna take a 5-minute bathroom break, please do, because I have 8 to enter for everybody, so. I decided to be very careful, I need the other day, but.
Yeah.
Yeah, she can just say. We're still funny because your old one just like kind of wandered off slowly and then wandered around and he came back.
Yeah,
He's just like,
yeah,
he's so old and cute.
he's definitely getting to the age where he's wandered off a couple times. We were out on the trail behind the Tahoe Ford for him to church and we actually couldn't find him for like 10 minutes and we were supposed to meet her. Like dementia maybe, he just wandered and he never done it before.
Can you call him?
Yeah, he did. It was so weird. And he's like, no.
Might be worth putting an air tag on him.
He has a microchip, but yeah, an air tag is a bit.
Kind of cheap insurance around there.
Yeah. Yeah, I was freaking out. I had almost started crying and then he was like, here he is. I was like, you scared me.
I'm contemplating, because an air tag is like the cheap answer. But I'm contemplating a Garmin for my dog because I want to start training him to be able to go off leash a little bit. He's such a bad adult. I know he's gonna run.
Usually, I mean, both, you know, if you stay back, you drop whatever they're doing and they pull back travel. Yeah, I don't think he can.
Yeah, that's.
I don't want to. No, he clearly couldn't.
Absolutely.
He couldn't go without her that day. I'm like, I was so.
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah.
And just like comes back, he's like,
That
this is me.
intended.
Yeah.
Nice to have that.
So.
Well, and
You're
it's
so
so
hard
hard
to
to love our yard too.
Oh, are they?
This is for her. It's also gonna be a lot of work. Okay, now what's the right fit for the next?
Yeah.
So we do.
Oh, whoops.
Probably maybe go with like the dog.
Yeah.
That's gotta be part of it.
Yeah.
We seriously had that same thing for a long time. Since the last one, passed. We haven't had one, because we traveled with family too, and, we adopted one about a month ago, and it was like sort of an accident, like I had not really been done with that thing.
Right.
But the right puppy,
I gotta look at.
God,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm sorry. For a friend, like, yeah.
That's what happened. I saw you in Australia and it,
Oh, yeah.
the shoe was on my car.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, I, another 5 years. She's still like,
She's
you are
still
training the dog, yeah.
5 hours drive the choice.
Yes, they bonded, but it took a little more time. Yeah. How's it going?
Oh, it's good. Although, you know, she's younger than.
I know.
I know, but I wasn't gonna be that.
Oh, yeah.
And so.
Made a decision. I wanted to accept the other and you check that item off. It's just, so I will absolutely stop. So take your step on it.
And that's right though.
Yeah.
And she is super sweet, I guess.
So what kind of dog and how did you end up with
So we kind of joke that she's a pure blood red dog.
Yeah.
And she, before we raised him out.
Like the raking line.
Her mom was rescued pregnant.
Sunrise
and then
section.
had 12 puppies. But this part of what happened is some of my friends were fostering the mom and then had the 12 puppies.
Yeah.
They're all over Angie's Facebook feed and they're just down the street. So we would go have like puppy therapy.
We did that.
I have exactly worse happened.
Can we discuss it? It's circle in the yard. Some of the stuff is right between us. Like, I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's fun that you were able to walk away.
Yeah.
That's what got really there. So I didn't want super young, I wasn't ready. But yeah, this one is super cute. And it would also help that they do still live down the yard, so, and a couple of siblings are always going to be there. And so, like, for instance, we went to Chicago, it's our first vacation since we had her. And she went and stayed with her grandparents.
That's
great. So that was it, a little easy. But we also, yeah, it's in the summer, and Angie already found an Airbnb that we can take our dog, so we're figuring out how to really travel with. You know, thank goodness there's Airbnbs out there to do that.
Yeah, no, that's.
So I mean, no.
Oh, yeah.
And happy to, believe me, I'm like ridiculous.
No, it's fine.
Um,
What kind of dog did you have?
She's a little bit of everything. She's. Yeah, she's probably that, like,
Good size.
yeah, kind of like quarter, probably five.
Yeah.
Yeah, she loves hiking and stuff.
she-
Small dog people because we cannot see her dog, so they have to be able to be.
Like, okay, so we're gonna trade on them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's comes up. I respect that so much.
You know that about yourself. A lot of dog owners don't know.
Yeah.
You're so silent.
We, huge houses that are trying to huge houses. Oh, I'm just hoping that the plays, they can do dinner, vice versa, the dogs. They're talkers, and so we're gonna have a rope dog, not a dog, but a team dog. Yeah. Sometimes they just stay to tell you everything that's not fun.
Every day, all time I go, and I would enter each other. And so it's starting to get.
That's
Asking them to. Not just the one in the space, not just big Irish shepherd. It's still more than that.
No, no, I mean, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when it's going
One for it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I appreciate your willingness to read all of our writing.
Yeah, so the,
Try the hardest part of the job.
you know, not hard, I just wanted to be really careful of, you know, I ran out to make sure I, using an Excel sheet, I just wanted to make sure I was lining all the names up correctly. Okay, so, the Butler roundabouts, Fourth Street Bridge, Foots Trail sculptures, and the indoor art exhibit. I will say that the indoor art exhibit in City Hall lawn are only 1 point apart. And so, it was after, so those are the four that were put in FY '28. And then in FY '29, that I'll keep the scores in mind. It'll be City Hall, then downtown Mile North Edge, school walkways, school green yard. If you have to note, the school green yard's been last, you know, in both rankings. I know some people ranked it at number one, a couple, you know, each. You know, it will be interesting to see maybe if we could get sustainability to take the lead, because if they do want to take the lead, and then we just provide the funding, then that way I can move it off. So I did note that we had a couple of number ones on that, even though overall it scored the lowest each time. But I keep all those things in mind, and as I go through the city processes and meet with the other departments, because that is my next step. It's not just that I meet with Heidi and other of the leadership, I also meet with the other departments. I'm gonna have a big meeting with pros in December. I'm gonna have, you know, a big meeting with some sustainability, you know, before, you know, I also take input, you know, public works. I gotta know if there's other, you know, projects on the horizon, but, we've been able to follow this, you know, pretty closely last year, at least in prioritizing. So I trust that that's going to continue. So that's all we're gonna do about prioritizing. Now we're gonna look at some of those out year projects and see if there's some that we just don't think are viable anymore and have a little discussion about them. We don't have as many in the out year projects as we used to. We got rid of a lot last year because they were aspirational ideas and they didn't really have projects attached to them. These kind of more do, but let's take a look at them. So I think there's just one more. The last presentation. Oh, okay, yes, Sorry. Great. Your project review. So always remember, aspirational ideas don't have to be in the 5-year plan. They can be ideas, yes, you know, we want to do a project like this, but it'll come in the 5-year plan when it actually has a project to attach it to. I do keep track of your guys' ideas. So, but that's how we keep the 5-year plan kind of clean. And again, we can request initiate discussions from the commission and invite needed partners. You know, especially ask you to keep that in mind for the out years going to this summer. If you guys want to initiate projects of your own ideas this summer, I think, you know, we could look at FY 29 and FY 30 for some of those ideas. But we always do like, is it a project or a concept? Do we have enough buy-in from partners? And how big of a priority does it have to even remain? So first up is Habitat for Humanity parcel, beautification of a civic amenity. We have had discussions about this. The Habitat for Humanity entered into a partnership with Timber Sky. And what they really wanted money for was landscape improvements. Just, you know, they have a bare minimum, as a lot of these low housing things do. You cannot get money for that. But they did have an area that was a community for an amenity, a community garden. If it's open to the public, it would qualify. We have had some discussions with housing and with legal, and we're still in the process of determining whether there's any HOA restrictions that would come into being so that community, because it has to be open to everyone. That if it's gonna be a community garden, it has to be just like the other ones and like Bonito and everything else and open to the public. So if the HOA is gonna put restrictions and not make that possible, then we cannot do the project. I don't have that answer yet. But let's just say HOA is not a problem. It doesn't become city land until the Habitat for Humanity project is finished. Okay, so it would definitely be later. So what came up in that discussion is, why is Habitat for Humanity getting something extra when the other low-income housing haven't? Shouldn't there be a citywide policy that allows for enhanced landscaping of all of them? And I think that is actually where the original idea kind of wanted to go. But that is gonna be a lift. It's gonna be a lift. It's gonna require partners and dedication. We can be part of it. We can even take a leadership role in it, but we have to have, you know, some really other interested parties to join us to make a citywide policy. So right now, I want to keep it to legal rules. Put it in FY9 to allow the completion of the housing if they say it's viable. But, you know, if I'm on the border about it, it may be something that would be better for just a citywide policy, which may or may never happen. So I just kind of put this one up for discussion. Some of the commissioners who've been here, they kind of know its history. It started you know, very much a conversation with Habitat for Humanity with one of our commissioners. And it's definitely a worthy type of project, something I think that we would be happy to do if we can somehow make it happen. It's just how much effort we want to put into it. So that's my updates on this. And I mean, I literally, like, legal was supposed to get back to me about the HOA 5 months ago, but that's the kind of thing is, if they're not really into it, we have to be the energy to keep pushing.
How many of these out year projects do you have again?
I think about 5.
Can we run through all of them before we start discussion?
Okay.
Just because then we can decide where we're going
Okay.
to allocate our time.
And you know, so we have the Lunar Landing, Milton Butler Drainage, McAllister Ranch, Pluto. Rio de Flag. Okay, so 1, 2, 3.
You want to walk through each step? Yeah.
But, yeah, but, then I still kind of want your input just on this one, and I'm not gonna ask you for which ones to definitely recommend for the.
No, I just wanted to remember whether or not we had to, whether or not there was some that were gonna require a longer conversation. I think it's really important to invest in the exteriors of these homes if this is going to be a long-term project on the part of the community. You know,
No, we
this,
can't, I have to ask you what's exterior.
okay, let
Can't
me,
do
let me,
anything
no,
on the home.
I get it.
It would have to be right of way only.
I need to be more specific. So I think it is very important to invest in the landscape and the beautification in these neighborhoods. This one is a really good example. It really is meant to be integrated into the greater neighborhood plan. And if the whole rest of the greater neighborhood has higher end landscapes and other things, it'd be difficult for this neighborhood to visually integrate rural, like the kind of housing that people want in their communities. If we don't do what we can as a community to invest in the beautification of this part of the neighborhood.
So right now, I just have to say though, without a citywide policy change, we cannot invest in the landscape in the right of way. Right, the only thing we can do is the community garden. I just want to make that clear, that is something that legal has told us and was very clear on. So I hear what you're saying, that that does then require a city policy.
Sure.
Yeah.
So maybe this is not a good investment application. And it needs to be pushed back to the city, you know, in a way that says, we need to activate here, we need to have a plan for these affordable housing areas so that they're welcome. Into neighborhoods. We have a real NIMBY problem here.
Yeah, I mean, one interesting piece is you have for-profit affordable housing developers, you have
Yes.
nonprofit affordable housing developers. And to be honest with you, the projects are all supposed to meet code regardless. And so I think there is this interesting conversation about what that policy will look like. Is that like, we help out when it's a nonprofit affordable housing developer, or are we suddenly helping multi-million-dollar national companies who are coming in to do?
And that is a question that I have.
And so I think it's not quite as easy as like, yeah, we should be doing all the low-income housing landscaping. That feels to me like way too broad. So it is an interesting question of how, where is that developers, where's Habitat's responsibility to actually make it fit?
Because is this more appropriate in a BIA grant?
Right, and that's right, I spoke for the garden,
Right.
the launch a garden, they could apply for both a BI and a sustainability grant. They do a community garden.
They could.
With those features and not involve us. And then if we want to try to get involved in the other, landscape enhancement above and beyond code. To just, beyond what's required for code, because what's required for code is very minimal.
Yeah.
And it won't plan.
And that to me feels like maybe a more appropriate channel. Because they can access that much money through a grant.
I think the information from the HOA is critical. I would be shocked if an HOA says, oh, come on, everybody, come hang out in our garden. I've lived in HOAs, I've served on their boards, they don't work that way typically. So, but I think having that answer is helpful to direct them appropriately, and the grants might be the better approach.
The grant will have to be publicly accessible as well, though. But it just has to be visible, though. It doesn't have to be,
And I mean, that grant's available to anyone potentially, but there could be priority points for affordable housing projects or.
But it changes, having it be a grant that the HOA has to apply for changes the tenor of it.
significant entire dynamic.
Yes. So, okay, that's what I wanted. I think this sounds complicated and like you're gonna run into a lot of legal and a lot of conversation that may or may not come to fruition, it might not be. Until we resolve it.
Any other comments on this one?
This is gonna note I'm totally not following the comment because I learned my company has that. I personally haven't had all of this, so many has, so.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you for making that clear for the record. Okay, lunar landing.
art and plaza, as you know, this has been in our out year, continues to be in our out year. It is an upper management, for, it wasn't put here by feedback, it was put here by, upper management. We got rid of one project last year, Saturn Gates. It may be, because there's another project coming up, Pluto, we may talk about combining the Lunar Landing with the Pluto, like making it one thing instead of two separate projects. It still remains, and I've had conversation, it remains an upper management priority. It will require staff investment scope though. I definitely consider doing it more than out here till staff has time. Because where it's gonna go is really gonna dictate a lot of the scope. We have talked about it being like a drive out, out here. We've also talked about it being more at the, the foot of the road up to Lowell. At the corner of Thorpe Park as well. So that will dictate, a lot, but I would like to hear your guys' comments as well. We don't have the science projects that we've been getting have been coming more obviously through the arts and science projects and things like that. We don't have any, kind of science oriented. I would really like this to make it interactive, something that, children and, could interact with.
Well, to that point.
And educational versus, just a code. When are we, repaving the bubble a lot? It's been repaved. No, the light's still there.
I don't think they're going to pay that. Yeah, they were, but there was public outcry against it.
I guess paving a lot. Yes, not just about the development, but it's paving a lot. Yes. So the improvements that they were gonna do, they've already done.
Okay, because the reason I was asking is there's actually that natural top of the road that goes from J Lively.
Mhm.
Which may be a really fantastic location for something like that, because you get so much foot traffic at Buffalo Park for the kids. And so when you talk about, and it's right next to the logical space location here on the Mesa, without being on federal land, or GSA land, or city land technically, I think, but it's just complicated when you start to talk about that. So, yeah.
But I have seen land up here easier to use than, Skirt Park, but yes.
So anyway, sorry, I hope I didn't pick a wound about paving the lot, but,
No, pros is cool.
I'm being frozen. It's got huge holes in it too, I feel so bad for that.
There's like this corner right out here that was actually, at one point was planned to be a parking lot, but I don't believe they're moving in that direction. And I mean, that's another place where we're talking about one of the type of science exhibits, because this is innovation.
This is the
Yes, it's up here.
This is where Montserrat is.
That's the entry to Buffalo Park, which is a highly loved and used place. So there are, I like what you're talking about, it's also right over here. There's a number of places it could work.
I feel like this is a pretty essential part of the future. Here, and to put something here that falls parking is a little sad. But there's already a giant parking lot at Buffalo Park.
Well, so the cross country.
Yeah.
There
Yes, that's a
are a
problem.
few events a year where we literally have people in practically fist fights or literally fist fights because there's not enough parking for the events they try to do here now.
Yeah.
And I think that's where some of that conversations come from, but that's a tangent.
No, I know, they park all over the grass over there,
That's
but
insane.
it's wild. But anyway, the reason I'm asking is it feels like there's already kind of a brownfield over there, like, it's not really a brownfield, but you know what I'm saying, there's already a brownfield over there, and there's a spot where you could logically get a lot of the traffic, kids, people riding bikes, and people out of their cars, but there's a parking lot. Feels logical.
Yeah, no, I think we could certainly explore that if it stays on the list.
Doesn't it have to stay on the list though?
Kind of has to.
That's my question. What do you ask?
And do we have a choice?
Because like upper
I
management
mean,
gets their projects. we
Well,
Take it off.
if I went to upper management and said, you know, VPAC really isn't interested in this project, that's a discussion that could be had. So,
I don't
no,
think
I do want to hear from you. It's not 100%, it's a bit, you know.
I don't think there's quite the drive. We actually, this one came to council like 9 years ago, and that particular council didn't want it where we had proposed. And it's kind of been on this process ever since, right? But I think there is interest in it. As Jenna mentioned, it's not like a priority for anyone.
If we wanted it, could we get the Buffalo parking lot paved?
We can pay it.
No, but we had this conversation.
I'm
Parking
teasing.
lots are beautifying.
No, I'm not.
They
No, I
don't want us to pay.
I mean, I have made the case to Jana that if you're putting something in, we are providing parking for that thing, then that is a part of that project. Not everybody
That is a
agrees with that
slippery
interpretation.
slope.
and it is a slippery slope.
It is.
But no, I don't think we're gonna go to pros and have them pay that for us.
Yeah, but no, if you did 3 spots by our amenity, that's one thing.
Right.
Maybe a parking lot is.
just seeing what we can weasel in with another group.
Yeah, okay. Alright, no, but that ship sailed, maybe.
It's so sad.
Okay, Milton, Butler drainage. I have actually, talked with, Christine Cameron and Capital. She's gonna be able to show me 60% plans, this year. And gonna see what that is going to already have as improvements. And then we'll really be able to better decide on this. As we know, the owner of National Grocers kind of said, no, that we need their permission to improve this, even as some of it, as much as we wanted to. But we're going to, I do want to see, because of the downtown mile angle, that we might get a foothold with that property owner that we might otherwise not have had. And if we can even enhance, the improvements as part of that project. Yes, I know, we all want this improved. It's just been
Going to the owners want.
And it doesn't seem like it helps with their sales.
we don't know why. I don't.
Yeah, no, they didn't actually say no. What happened is they said they don't want to pay to do it because they had bought that land specifically to put signs on Milton, and then we told them they couldn't put signs on Milton. And then they said, well, if we can't put signs on Milton, we don't really want this. And they didn't realize we were gonna put a huge stormwater easement over that, prevented them from doing anything. So they were grumpy with us. We then went back to them for beautification and said, what if we helped pay for it? The guy was like, let me go talk to corporate. He then quit. The next guy didn't call it back. Their no was more of a like, it's not worth us spending time on right now than it was a hard no. They don't want to pay.
Right.
Like, we were sort of throwing out there, what about a 50-50 split? You pay half, we pay half. And they said no to that, and then they just stopped responding. But I think that was, again, as we've talked about with some other projects, the priority level changes when you lose your contact person and the other person's trying to pick it up. I wonder if we reached out, if there'd be a whole new person who might be more excited.
Right, I think it's worth waiting for these 60% plans.
I agree. Knowing what it's gonna look like makes a bigger difference.
Right,
But it wasn't a hard no. It was like, we're not gonna pay for it. And
yeah.
Who maintains the,
which the,
and the improvements outside the easement, who's maintaining them?
I think it's a fairly clear no
Nobody.
at the moment.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if we were to do something, is it city maintaining or is it natural growth?
So normally if we go in and put in beautification infrastructure, then we take responsibility for maintaining it, often through a contract with pros.
Right, and so pros would have to be involved in that, yes.
I don't want to hold our discussion today, so I'll just jot my thoughts down.
No, it's, we know this is an eyesore, we know we don't want to drop this, we know we want to go there someday. I think that's the, I think I've heard that from this commission over the years, I don't necessarily, I see we have an actual opportunity possibly coming up to try to go back in.
I think if they're already putting something across there, that they'll watch. It's also an important time to weigh in about what that looks like. You know, going back to Commissioner Lebarski's aversion to shopping. You know, nice making sure that drainage at least.
Well, we'll see that in a minute. We'll have more chance of that on this project than we can have. Yeah.
There's the.
Okay.
Probably have to file.
So, here's one, McAllister Ranch, Route 66, Interpretive Plaza. This was originally, and Dave can speak to this a little bit better than I, because he has the longer history with the project. When we were doing those Route 66 monuments, this was a separate one, because it was gonna be a bigger, but it was gonna be kind of part of it. Process. It has, you know, it seemed like about a year and a half ago, under the previous historic preservation officer, there was, you know, perhaps changing it to more interpretive signage, you know, different adjacent parking lots, sports parking spots for the ranch itself, as sustainability was coming in and making an incubator urban farm and some other things. But I would have to tell you that has just, last year I talked with Dave, I said, let's keep this in one more year. But I'm not seeing any traction on this project. You know, other than we go in and invent the whole project. And the Route 66 monuments are done. HBC doesn't seem to be there. Sustainability is not really leading that. They're just, you know, so.
Can I provide a little more history?
Yeah, you can.
Thank you. So this was fully designed back when Carl Eberhard was here, and we did provide a parking lot for our improvements, just throwing it out there. No, I mean.
See our conversation.
Yeah. I'm going to say. But so we actually had designed this, and if you look at the monument that's out there, there's actually a place on the monument for a plaque for McAllister Ranch, because the McAllister Ranch was a big part of Flagstaff's history. These buildings are not in their original location, but were moved over to it, which does take away some of that historical integrity, but at the same time, the ranch buildings, it's a significant portion of Flagstaff's history that is in here. What's interesting is the reason we were unable to proceed is Public Works was saying, you know, there's dangers there. There's these cisterns and other pieces that we want to get dealt with before you guys come in and do it. Over the years, some of that has been fixed up, and but they actually did close off the cistern, but now it's an incubator for farm incubator, as mentioned. And it really has kind of lost this. I think this one was in place back when historic preservation and beautification were literally the same program. I don't know if you remember, but Carl was both. And so this is one of those where now that historic pres is in a different space, and they are focused in other directions, that particular part of the movement has changed. The use has changed, the buildings have been changed a little bit, and I don't think the project itself necessarily has the legs that it once had, or the design would be the same as it was. So it's almost gone backwards. It is still truly historic buildings that are out there. It would be lovely at some point for that to become an amenity rather than mothballed liability, but it is currently being used as a farm incubator. And it's not necessarily something that would be a place we want to attract, because that was why they were worried about the cisterns, because we were literally going to try to attract people off Route 66 to park and check out the historic buildings, and that was considered a safety liability.
So how's the farming incubator going? Like, are people out there active?
I actually don't know.
It's supposed to begin in 2026.
Okay.
I don't think it's actually started. So for me, this is something that it would be a different project. And so if sustainability wants to come to us and say, hey, we'd like this amenity, it's beautification oriented, we can reinstitute a new project. you know, at that time, they can come present the new project and they can have new legs, but I think it needs that kind of energy. And so, you know,
I was just thinking,
I'm obviously recommending them. Yeah, until sometime that happens. So it's, you know, but I want your guys' input as well.
well, it seems to me like if there really is a farm beautification program happening out there, the farmers will know what it is they are hoping to have happen out there. And it could be responsive to the people that are actually going out there and using the space, which.
Yeah, as long as they don't lose the historical integrity of the buildings, and I think that's probably the way to go. And either way, it could be driven by the farming community, it could be driven by the Historic Preservation Commission, but it could be a new project regardless of how it comes back up.
I agree with you, Janet.
Because, I'm also for, yeah,
Yeah,
it was hard because,
there's no there right now.
right,
There's no there, yeah.
And so there's some more energy and enthusiasm about what could be if not right now.
Right, and that's why, you know, like I said, the 5-year planning, the aspirational, you know, I want them to be there's, if it's in the 5-year plan. And then I just always then, new project ideas, they come forth every summer.
Yeah.
And then we start, you know, putting them in the plan, because then if they're new, they've got energy behind them and, you know, and that sort of thing, so. Whatever. So, okay, thank you very much for listening to Dave and I's back and forth with this project. Then we do have the Pluto 3D art, which I did actually kind of originally, it was actually, first cited for that triangle, space on Santa Fe, but, Public Works said, absolutely no, we dump snow there, you cannot have it. And so it is one of our main snow removal spots. There was a former commissioner actually made a tongue-in-cheek sign that was hilarious. It was a triangle, kind of seating wall within the space, and it had this broken off part with like Pluto on it, like, because he's not on the planet anymore. It was very cute. It was a concept idea. That was, Jeremy Slater, remember correctly, that was lots of fun. But it became, first said, you can put it here in the corner. We thought about it as educational, interactive, something for the kids in the park. But, you know, and we were trying it before to, kind of going with the Saturn gates, but that became a non-viable project. So it could stay here as a standalone, it could be combined, it could go away.
Is that where the trail should go? That we eventually get?
We're not talking about the trail yet. The trail is far too big.
Yeah.
It has to go someplace else.
I want
The
to.
observation plaza. So anyway, those it's just, that's a,
No,
something that's not,
I'm teasing,
Yes.
and that's a purely aspirational.
yes, yes.
Um,
But it's not here yet because it's aspirational only. Yeah. So,
we've been pushing these ones around for about 4 years. And, does anybody have, like, is there any internal push for this anymore?
I think the only internal push is that staff has thought it would be good to keep some science-oriented capital projects on the books. But not to give them energy until they're right. But it does have a concept. It actually has a, you know, a very specific thing in a kind of a specific place. It has more specificity that still fits the project, than, you know, the last one we talked about, but no, this was definitely staff driven.
Yeah.
This was staff driven, you know, through the year. I mean, it originally came from Jeremy Slater, the commission. So it came from the commission. I think it's wanted to be kept by staff, try to get a science capital project.
It's a cool project. I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if it's good.
It doesn't have anything else beyond that. Yeah. So, everyone listen to your guys' thoughts about it. We just push it out, we keep it, we remove it.
Are we accepting them now, or I thought you were accepting them during that through the whole?
Oh,
I just want to make sure, because I feel like I should go back a couple of these.
Yeah, no, I guess I've been asking just for general thoughts, but then I'll ask at the end, which should definitely remove and ask these questions.
Okay,
Okay, so it's kind of both.
okay,
We're being lovely here.
okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other flag? As I already talked to you about how, phase one and phase two. I will tell you that for phase one, the concerns about the Shep Creek, we haven't been actually able to do much on that. Pretty much, as you know, we have different capital project manager. He listened to us very carefully, put everything into the Army Corps of Engineer, Army Corps of Engineer said that. So, the only thing was the color of the Shop Creek that we were able to,
That's an improvement.
yeah, to put any input on. And that's it. And as I say, I think phase two is, we have had more success. And again, I know, Commissioner Elman, he has to kind of be quiet, but, there's been some form liners put up, some concrete work, through, Norris as the designer on this. There have been spots on the Foots Trail nodes that are reserved for aesthetic enhancements, and, it's in, and that if they do the bridge, over City Hall, the parking lot, that we will do decorative railing on that bridge. Those things are in there, and they're placeholders, but just don't know where this is going. Just wanted to be very honest about the Shop Creek discussion, because it ended up displaying all of our best input, did not go anywhere on phase one.
I think that these are gonna be really impactful in our downtown, so anything that we can do. It would be important to keep this on the table.
Yeah.
That's,
No idea, we know, I think Germany was a very strong, project manager for the capital, he put in, and they rejected it.
in which case it's important that we get the other things in.
Yes, and we did, our input is in there, and so, but we'll have hopefully opportunity to address those no's much more fully, but I don't know what year that's gonna be, or if any of us will be here. So, okay, so that's the outlook, so I just kind of wanna go around to each commissioner and ask them, and I didn't make a list, so I can go back and forth. Which of these do you recommend for removal? And, if it's all right, I'm just gonna kind of go around the table and I'll start with Commissioner Travelby.
Just pick one that I recommend for removal.
As many as you want.
Oh, okay. Well, I think probably the house ranch. That's what I'm not sure how.
Vice Chair Wheeler?
I would say the Habitat for Humanity seems like it's too much of a boondoggle right now. And McAllister Ranch. Same.
Same?
We should have one here.
Same? And,
Well, comments that I didn't, or ask a couple questions
Yes.
earlier.
go ahead.
On the natural grocers site, I'm glad you're tied into the downtown connection, because I think there's two things just from the current business and any future thing that could happen on that site, like having it be walkable and visible, just really have a partnership. The business is just so important, and also, not doubling up on construction, which can slow business, but it's tying into the schedule of downtown mile. I think are things that I just think they're thoughtful, so I'm glad. I think that's just a I'm definitely important to see what they have planned and how to tie in. Okay, but I can't comment on the Rio de Flag or Habitat projects, so, so the one that I think, McAllister Ranch, I think should be removed. I was curious about the, the lunar landing. How big of a plaza are we talking? Like, the scale is the one that
I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that depends on the location. I think up here, it can be a much bigger project than it could be if it was at the corner park. And I think that's one of the, it's a factor.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, totally.
And so, it is an out-year project, it's something that to go will need a lot of staff planning and commission planning. And that taking it on the real horizon, that's a discussion, where should it go? Have to plan for the project.
Appreciate the
Yes.
terminology.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is great.
Yeah, Curly, you're new, what are your thoughts?
Sure. I would agree with some of my fellow commissioners regarding McAllister Ranch and then also Habitat. Those would be two I would remove. I also appreciate the staff comment around potentially combining the two science related. But to your point, you need a little bit more detail and fleshing out what that would look like. Feels like trying to list two science related projects might be a bit much because they both seem sort of nebulous. So perhaps to have one that would be a better use of the time and resources it takes to figure all of it out.
And it seems to me like the food on the lunar landing projects could lead to kind of a network of science related.
Could be a springboard. for-
Yeah,
Right.
and having some kind of connection among them
Mhm. Yeah.
would really, and so a master plan for science.
Master plan.
Yeah, no problem.
Then a science, educational science art projects.
That would be
Master
Yeah.
plan, that could be an interesting idea in a way to handle these too.
Yeah,
Especially if we're thinking something more tactile.
Yeah.
Interactive.
and every time it comes up, I get excited about the idea that it is a big project that will require a lot of thought.
It feels like it's a project that really is gonna have to involve the science community
Yeah,
and a lot of input and probably one of our most significant community outreach efforts.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to get buy-in from the goals, they would see it as a bridle to
Yeah.
their missions. And the mission oriented,
Yeah.
discovery center.
And then your creator, educational landscape.
right.
Of a major career educational license for they really come in to apply for, GOS grant things now. They're becoming a force.
Yes, they are.
Thank you. That's a really good input. Really good input. Hey. You're done. I think we have to close out the agenda.
Yes, we have a staffing considerations the next time.
Yes, and I think Heidi actually kind of brought that up. We are considering, she jumped the shark on me.
She said that's.
Yes,
I think
and,
she's
oh,
listening.
right, yes, and so, and then one more thing that Pam is gonna jump in on here, but we are considering adding staff. Now, what level of that staff? Is it part-time, is it full-time, is it a coordinator, is it an administrator? We're still going through that internal, debate and taking, input from all of our staff, NCI, on this. And so, because we also have office space we have to consider, we don't have an office staff for anybody. This involves maybe us moving, so it's not just a, boom decision, we're done. But it would allow for more, master planning ideas and other things, should we do that? then having, another experienced staff on mine for the point when I retire, in a few years. So that's another consideration that, that's going into this, the kind of long-term planning for the program. So, that is definitely coming up. But we also have, this is the start of our budget cycle. And there will be at least three more presentations to be back as part of this. And it's gonna tie into the budget approval process that Tammy is now gonna highlight for us, and the kind of the dates that we'll be hitting things. Go ahead.
So we do 5-year, we have a new budget section, and so we've kind of moved up the dates this year because there are more people to do the work. So we do a 5-year plan for all the funds, and so I do an arts one and beautification one, and those will go out to the division, so we'll go out to you on December 5th. And that's just set as how it is, so that'll be for your review. And then, we send out division personnel sheets. They'll be due to you on January 9th, and maybe you can remind me, is that when you ask for new positions, or is that just you review? I don't know. I just started last year, so that was my first go
I
around.
think that is when we asked.
So what's interesting is that usually, and this is a little more of the sausage for all of you, HR requires us to tell them that we're gonna want new positions before your date.
Okay, so then
And so we have to know by like mid or early December for the HR, and then the money we ask for in
Okay.
late January.
Yeah, since you were talking new positions, I wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and so yeah, we'll have to make that decision in the next couple of months, but we won't actually know if we have the money for it yet.
Yes, correct. And so then, we ask for forms from the division, so that what the forms that come in are, we ask for their, operating expenditures as well as their capital improvement requests, and that's what we listed today. And those are due back to our division in mid-January. So everything will have to be completed then. And then there's a division review that sits with, the finance and the budget area, that sits with, we'll sit down with Jana and Heidi and Dave, and they'll go over the CIP plan, and that's mid-February. Then there's 3 weeks of review that they review the city budget, so all the divisions are on the books and have to go in and defend their plan. And that will occur between mid-February and the beginning of March. And then, March 26th has something called the Capital Retreat, and it is a public meeting. And everyone that has capital projects comes and does a whole presentation about what their requested plans are. So that's where everyone will get to see what you guys have decided on. And it's a public meeting. It's really interesting. You might not be interested to be there all day for it, but, come on over. It's fun.
I will say it's a fun one because council gets pretty jazzed about
Council gets really
About
bad. They love.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's a feel-good one for our program, not every program.
And it's interesting to see what's going on in Flagstaff, because your water's in there and streets are in there. You get to see all these plans for everyone. So,
Yeah.
so that's the timeline for
Great.
the budget.
So because the capital projects are kind of due in January 15th, I will be presenting what I'll be submitting. The capital projects probably at our January meeting. So for both operating and capital projects, and obviously a new position, that's when I'll be kind of relaying all that to you. Sometime usually in kind of February, we try to do, kind of have Creative Flagstaff come and tell you what they've been doing all year. With the money that we gave them last year, just kind of have that review as part of, the process. But then we won't take the actual budget vote from you until April, till after that city meeting. And then that's kind of your final. So we'll probably have like three more meetings, and that's what to expect as our next steps. But I will be very busy with budget in December and January, as you could see from the deadlines now.
Coming quickly.
So don't talk to me.
I'm trying to think of a very complicated question.
Yes.
Something that involves a lot of research.
Yes.
Well, we could just ask Jenna to make a master plan.
Oh, yeah, a master plan, another master plan. Perfect. Okay. Okay. All righty. Anything else?
Nope, okay, that's now it.
Well, our next BPAC meeting is in November, on Monday, November 10th.
And as you know, you will have
2025.
DIA, you have 14 presentations from DIA grantees. We will try to keep it.
Concise.
That the main focus and not put too many other things on the agenda, okay? So we'll do our best to keep it clear for that.
I think that we didn't have a lot of questions about grants today, and I think that's probably a good communication.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, that,
Looks like
we are
this year.
adjourned.
Person.
Thank you, everybody, so much.
Thank you.
It was.